or donating to anything with them.
Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission work session for this Monday, April 8th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Here.
Commissioner Gorman,
Here.
Commissioner Cochin, absent, Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Here.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Here.
Commissioner Keener, absent.
Thank you. Before we get into business, I want to remind folks that we do have a public comment period at our work session. The public comment period at work sessions are reserved to the end of the meeting. You can speak on any topic during that public comment period. There will be a phone-in opportunity as well, so if you're not here with us in person, you may call in. And during that public comment period time, there will be a phone number scrolling along the bottom of the screen. Call in at that time, and we'll welcome your input. People giving a comment, whether by phone or in person, is 3 minutes per person. All right, first order of business, water fund revenue. Welcome, sir. If you please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dan Vanderheid. I'm the Director of Public Works for the city.
Good evening.
I've got a presentation here for you, so I'll give just a couple seconds, hopefully, to get that pulled up. All right, so I'm here tonight to talk about somewhat the state of the water fund, but more specifically to talk about ways, or one specific way, that we can increase revenue in the water fund, and we'll get into why. Some of you may recall, this is similar to a presentation that I gave to the Legislative Policy Committee, which is made up of this body, in sort of late fall, early winter last year. Some of the numbers and things are updated, but the situation is similar, and so will be some of the information you see. There's just a bit of an agenda for this presentation, but I won't bore you with that. I'll get right into it. So just so that everyone understands what our current rates are, water commodity rate, which is a fancy term for what you pay per unit of water that you use. And unit, in this case, means something pretty specific. It means 100 cubic feet of water, or 748 gallons. Right now, our residents pay $2.06 per unit. That has been increasing over the past 5 years. You can see there we had a 4% increase in each of the past 4 fiscal years. Similarly, in the sewer side, the residents pay $5.22 per unit. And that is based on a multiplier of what we pay to the county. The city doesn't treat the wastewater, we pay the county to treat it for us. And our industrial and commercial customers are charged 125% of that rate. There's a few other things on the water bill. There's a sewer administration charge of $3 per month, and that's charged per account. So that's just a flat fee that doesn't depend on how much you use. The same is true with the debt service fee, and that was added this past July. So this first year that we're currently in, this fiscal year, is the first year that these charges appeared on the bill. That is $6.08 for water and $2.39 for sewer. And what that is a charge that covers the amount of debt that each system pays. And it's tied to capital projects that we take on debt for. That fee, being a separate fee, separate from the commodity rate, allows us to reduce that fee or increase it as projects are signed up for the capital improvement plan or as the debt associated with them falls off. And that is adjusted each July, and I'll make a recommendation essentially regarding those amounts this evening and tomorrow. And then also a couple other things that are on the water bill but somewhat unrelated. The sanitation fee of $4 per month, that helps backfill the trash service that residents receive, and the lead service line fee, which is at $5 per month, and that raises revenue lead service line replacement efforts. Just comparing what Muskegon charges to some of our nearby and similar communities, and you can see without going into the details or the specifics of that Muskegon is as low as or nearly as low as all of our all of these comparable communities anyway. So, why am I here? The current financial picture, which we received as one of the outcomes of the recently completed fiscal year 23 comprehensive financial report, shows that the water fund is about $2.4 million in, I won't say in debt, but short and due to other funds. In other words, the city has pooled cash, and the water fund has effectively borrowed $2.4 million from the other funds in that cash pool that have more cash than it does. Sewer being one of those. The sewer fund has $3.2 million on hand. So again, that's a good picture of how that pooled cash works. Some funds have funds, some don't, and in this case, the water is 2.4 in debt to other funds in a certain. There's another way to look at that. It's more of an accounting thing, but the water fund also was noted with an unrestricted net position deficit of about $2.1 million. We thought at the time that I talked to you about this last that a deficit elimination plan would need to be submitted to the state. However, due to kind of the specifics of how that is calculated, that turned out not to be true. So that's the silver lining to the cloud, shall we say. So AWWA, which is the American Water Works Association, recommends 6 months of expenses in reserve for our utility funds. Based on the budgets, you'll see there that would result in about a little over $5 million for water and a little over $4 million for sewer. So even the sewer fund is a little bit short compared to the recommendations. One other thing to note is that the comprehensive financial report, or and won't want me to call it an audit, but that is something of what it is. It looks at our finances from a fiscal year perspective. That doesn't work very well from a construction season perspective. So one of the issues we have is that right at the time that financial report is calculated, the funds often have a lot of money out to contractors and are awaiting reimbursement from the state or from other sources. So if we look at it at a calendar year end, it is a little bit better than that. But from an audited or comprehensive financial report perspective, those are the numbers, and that is what most organizations look to. So that is the state of things. So how did we find ourselves in this position? As you, I'm sure, know, from about 2005 to 2018, things were a little tight in the city, and that led to a lower amount of capital expenditure and limited amount of maintenance expenditure. And that had some positives, which was we built up some cash in that time period. In 2018, 2019, the good news is things began to loosen up in terms of finances here at the city as new investment was made. The byproduct of that was we began to invest in the system again. We took on new debt service or new loans essentially to fund capital programs, and we began to tackle some of those deferred maintenance expenses. Then from 2020 to 2022, we had all sorts of crazy things happening. Historic inflation, labor shortages. Those two have pretty much resolved themselves, but material increases is ongoing. It is still difficult to obtain many of the things that go into capital projects, particularly on the water main side. During all that time, I mentioned we had rate increases that were 4% each year. Those were based on a study that was done by a consultant, and they were flat. And because that study had recommended 4% increases those years, we weren't really in a place where we needed to look at that, or thought we weren't. And so those rate increases were less than what they should have been at that time. So as we saw, the water fund is in debt, and it's done some unfortunate things to the water fund and even the city's finances as a whole. So just a visual picture of what we talked about. The balance, so to speak. Those two lines are just two different ways to look at the numbers. You can see, though, that at one point we had that healthy cash balance, and although I regret that we didn't catch it earlier, we do find ourselves below that break. So what we're proposing, or what we have started to do, is instead of looking back and hiring a consultant to look at past performance and recommend rate increases based on that, worked with the city's financial consultant to develop a system that looks forward instead, and basically attempts to project the revenue that the city will see in future years, balance that against capital improvement expenses that are planned and debt service that and we can project whether the funds, water and sewer, will be making enough revenue in order to cover their expenses or not. It projects out 5 years, so it's something that we can make changes in the current fiscal year, but know how those changes are expected to perform or affect the system over time going forward. Just so you know, we're not alone in needing revenue in our water fund. This comes from our financial consultants, and they anonymized the data for us, but these are 3 communities that they serve that are not Muskegon. See that some of them are in a pretty tough position, tougher even perhaps than we are. Year-over-year increases of consistently 15%, or an increase there of 58% in a single year. So those changes from 2020 to 2022 did not affect just Muskegon. They affected a lot of water funds. And frankly, there's ongoing issues that continue to affect particularly communities like Muskegon, where lead service lines are common. So the important bit, what are we recommending? So the debt service fee, actually, and I apologize, this didn't make it into the presentation, but you'll see it tomorrow evening. The good news is that on the water side and sewer side, the debt service fees are projected to go down about 50 cents this year. It's not due to any particular bond debt falling off. It is simply just the way that charge is set up. It deals with the debt from the prior fiscal year, and the comprehensive financial report determined the amount of debt that the system's paid and extended over the accounts. That resulted in about a 50-cent decrease between those 2. But as we talked about, the bad news is that is good for our residents in a sense, but it's bad for the city as a whole in the sense that that's 50 cents per account less that we're raising through that debt service fee next year. So over time, we're proposing several increases. Again, that's part of the tool that we're looking at. It projects that a rate increase this year will help, but will not completely turn it around. And so we're anticipating rate increases again. You can see some information up there about what we think will happen over time. But at the bottom there is the important part, which is that the water commodity rate is recommended to be raised from $2.06 per unit to $2.27 per unit. And that's a 10% increase. A couple nuances there. The sewer fund or the sewer rate is not proposed to be changed. We do expect that the sewer fund will reach that AWWA minimum recommendation at the end of this fiscal year, which is a good thing. So we'll be in the black on the sewer fund, we anticipate this year. But the water fund, like I said, will continue to probably need future rate increases even on looking at the impacts to a bill, 10% sounds like quite a bit, and don't mistake me, it is a substantial increase in terms of the commodity rate. But this is an analysis just to show that a 10% increase in the water rate does not translate to a 10% increase in someone's water. So the fiscal 24 column, which is at the left side of the chart, shows an annual increase of 12% at the bottom, and that is based on adding the debt service fees to water. Consider that fiscal year 24 column now 0, and so the year-over-year increase with a 10% increase to the water commodity rate is about 2.1%. Gives you an idea of how much that 10% increase translates into a bill change. And then those other columns continue to anticipate those future rate increases that we talked about, also anticipating the changes to the water and sewer debt fees as best we can project them. So that was a lot of information. Tomorrow evening, there's an item on the agenda to approve or propose to approve the increase to the water commodity rate, as well as reset the water and sewer debt fees, which again will include, I believe it's specifically a 52-cent to those fees combined. Yes, I've presented why that recommendation and why those items are here, and I welcome your questions and your thoughts.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Vanderheide. Commissioners, questions at this time, or otherwise any comments you might have?
Just
Yes,
yeah.
Commissioner German.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Vanderheide, thank you for the report and presentation. We've been here quite a few times, with this item, and I'm just wondering, what did we do to not get to this point? I know you talked about there was a study that suggested that we should raise the rates, but is this a continuing thing where we're going to eventually have to come back and you make another proposal in front of the commission because we have not reached that benchmark? I guess my question would be something that could sustain it, where you don't have to come back to the commission. Have you thought about that? And I know we don't like to raise rates, but when it's necessary, we have to do what we have to do as a city to maintain the services, for the community. So just your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, will I be back asking for another rate increase next year? The answer is probably yes. We took a look at doing the rate increases all in 1 year and hoping, so to speak, that takes care of the problem. That would be about a 30% rate increase this year in order to turn the fund around in a similar time frame. It would take a few years even after that increase to build up the funds to recommended point, but those rates would be consistent over those years. Talking with the manager and with this group at the Legislative Policy Committee, there seemed to be support for spreading out that rate increase over a matter of years. And so the 10% rate increase that's proposed this evening would be in conjunction, likely, again, each year we're going to use that tool from the city's financial advisor and make sure. But we anticipate that it would be a 10% increase this year, the following year, and the year after that. Begin to build enough revenue to really turn that curve around and reach that recommended minimum amount 2 years after that.
Okay, just to follow up. I know you mentioned also during the presentation that the city decided not to go ahead and do a study with a consultant, anything like that. If you did go with a consultant, would that rectify? Do you feel that would rectify the issue that we have here? Because I guess the plan is to gradually do it in increments, but how would a study make a difference?
Sure, good question. So I believe a study would recommend a similar amount of rate increase. Whether they would recommend it all at one time or over some number of years, that's probably something that staff and the consultant might determine together. The fact is that because the fund is $2.4 million due to other funds or in debt, so to speak, that the normal rate setting methodology doesn't necessarily apply in this case, right? The biggest issue is not what our capital plan is in the next few years or what our cost to treat water is. The biggest issue is that we have to build cash in order to fix the the debt that the fund finds itself in. So I think certainly when we reach those minimum level of reserves that the AWWA recommends, we'll be back in a more traditional rate setting situation where a consultant might be helpful in terms of determining what those rates should be in the future, anticipating all of the things that we expect to do. But for now, we really believe that the city's financial consultant has a better handle on the needs that the fund has. Effectively, that we need to build cash in the fund regardless of the things we might do out in the streets and bonds and other things that we might sell. So we think this allows us to project better how these rate increases will help solve that problem. So
Okay.
I think this is the right approach.
Thank you. One last question before I forget, Mayor. With the new infill housing projects that's going on, quite naturally, they're being charged for water. Has that made an impact somewhat for the water funds?
We expect that'll make an impact in the long term. When a new home is built, the fees that we may collect when that home is built are essentially cost recovery, right? But in terms of building that fund balance and building that revenue over time, that's something that really we anticipate, that monthly bill over the next 20, 30 years that home exists and that account is paid, that really is what will help and will turn the water fund around in the long term.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner German.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Director Van Hyde, we did talk about this, as you said, back a couple months ago at the legislative policy meeting. And the last slide that you showed increases of 12%, in 24, 2%, in 25, 3.3, and 26, and 5.1, and 27. Yeah. On the bottom, annual increases there. But then on the previous slide, the one that you were just on showed 3 annual increases of 10%. So I'm just a little confused. If we're just talking about the water, and here in one of these lines it says includes both debt fees, are we looking at not doing a 12% this year and just doing 10, 10, and 10? Or are we looking at 12 and then the smaller numbers in the subsequent years?
Good question. So the line on this chart that I'm showing now that's changing is the water usage line, which is the last line before the total. That's the line that we're talking about the 10% increases happening on. And this chart is meant to show that even though that particular line is going up, again, it doesn't go up 10% because it's based on an average user's bill. This chart is. So it doesn't go up 10% on that line, but essentially the price of gas, if you will, right, goes up 10%. At the end of the month, the household budget is not affected 10%. So in this case, the water rate goes up 10%, but that doesn't translate into necessarily a 10% increase in what the average household might see per month. This chart is meant to show that even though we're talking about a 10% increase to that rate that folks will pay for water, on their bill, they'll see more like that annual increase line, second from the bottom. They saw about a 12% increase this year with that debt service fee being added. If we raise the water commodity rate or the water rate this year 10%, that'll be an impact to the bill of about 2%, which combined with last year's increase is a total of 14.5% over the last 2 years. I know that's a lot of numbers and math, but essentially this chart is intended to show that a 10% increase in water rates doesn't translate to a 10% increase in
Gotcha.
substantially smaller, just because the water rate is only one part of the water bill.
Awesome. And I'm really good at math. English, don't ask me to spell anything. But so if we did a 10% increase in 24 and a 10% increase in 25, this chart is just showing at the bottom that 2.1 for fiscal year 25. It's only really a 2.1 increase because of their total bill is not increasing 10%. It's just on the water usage. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manager, you have something to add?
Yeah, and Director Van Hyde did an excellent job explaining that. The reason we broke it down this way is in the past, commissioners have asked, well, what does this mean for the actual bill? And because when somebody gets their utility bill from us, it's usually referred to as the water bill. But as is evidenced by this, there's a lot of other things on there other than just water. And so if someone's looking at, their average bill might be $70 a month, so they're looking at 77. Well, no, because it's just that one usage. So we're trying to break it down to be a little more transparent on what it looks like overall for individual families and how it's impacting our neighbors. But it does get confusing. But Director Vanderhyde did an excellent job explaining all of those factors.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Kogo? Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Can you go back to the slide that you had listed several different communities? And
This one or the one that showed the nearby communities and other communities?
I think either one of these would work.
Okay.
My question was that this is not a Muskegon failing to take care of their infrastructure appropriately problem. Can you speak on that a little?
Yeah. As I said, a lot of the reasons are tied up in that 2020 to 2022 period where labor increases were large, material costs went way up, inflation overall was up, and this chart in particular shows that well. You can see in 2020 and 2021 those costs really start to hit these communities as well. The other factor, for a community like Muskegon, and definitely for us, is lead service lines. And so much of the bond debt that we've signed up for over the last few years has been associated with replacement of lead service lines. We're fortunate that some of the federal laws and some of the state money in the bank, so to speak, was devoted to those projects, and we've been the beneficiary of some high levels of principal forgiveness or grant as associated with those projects. But even in the context of 50% being grant, a $4.3 million lead service line replacement project still puts $2.1 or so million on the city's books that we have to pay over 20 years. And so that's a big part of the reason why this rate increase, although it will help, it will take, we believe, multiple years and multiple increases in order to build that cash as we continue to sign up for lead service line replacement projects. Expect that the federal government is in the final stages of making a rule that may require us to have them replaced sooner than we expected. So.
Okay. And then the other slide that you were referencing is speaking to what other communities are charging in comparison to us. So if I'm understanding correctly, our water fund issue is due in part because we have not charged enough money for the water that we produce. We're selling it cheaper than we produce it. Is that, for somebody who's not real mathy, is that a fair question?
Over the last, although certainly not on purpose, over the last few years, I would say that is true. That at least at the rate at which we've been making upgrades and repairs to the system, we have been effectively selling it cheaper than we've been making it. Yes.
Okay. So the answer can't be just to make it cheaper.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add at this time? Thank you. Mr. Manager.
The Vice Mayor brought up a really good point that I want to unpack a little bit as far as the cost to produce the water. We participate in consortiums when we're purchasing the products that we need, the chemicals to treat the water before it gets sent out. So we're getting economies of scale that we wouldn't get otherwise by participating with those entities. So a lot of times we're able to benefit from contracts that the city of Grand Rapids negotiates, or the state or other entities. So we're paying usually the same commodity price for those treatment chemicals as these other communities are as well. So.
Thanks for the additional context. Any final thoughts or questions, commissioners? All right. Well, thank you, Director Van Heiden. Really appreciate the work you and our colleagues have put into this. No one enjoys raising rates, but it is a necessity, particularly if we want to provide a service to our community, ensure that sewer and water are functioning well, and supports development and public health and well-being. So it is critically important, and we have to make the adjustments accordingly. Not going to hold you to the rest of the forward-looking forecast of keeping everything static except for the sewer or water, but that certainly would be nice if we could do that. That would be the goal, at least. But thank you so much for putting this together and providing that context and comparison. I think that is important to see the comparable communities and how our rates stack up. And just a little bit of background context as well. In 2017, I believe it was, the city had contracted for a sewer and water rate study and was looking at capital asset management plans going forward. And that time they were recommending static percentage. I think it's 3% sewer, 4% water. There was a one-time larger increase of the upfront, like over 12%. Then a static 3 and 4% going forward. But as we saw, that did not keep up with our situation, and for all the various different reasons you shared with us. So, thank you again. So, commissioners, this will be on our agenda tomorrow night for a formal vote of adoption. And the subsequent rates that he mentioned, the forecasting of 10% next year, 10% the year after that, that will come to the city commission in those years for adoption. So we're not necessarily committing ourselves to those rates going forward. As circumstances change, perhaps we won't need to have the same rate increases in years future. But, all right, next item, Trinity Health Arena facility upgrades. Welcome, sir. If you could please introduce yourself.
Sorry. Good evening, Commission. I'm Jake LeMay, Arena Director. I'm here tonight to give a presentation on the evolution of the arena, the changes that it's undergone, and how it relates to our capital improvement plans and the recently approved renovations of the Lumberjacks space. So, all right. So just briefly, I've got some pictures showcasing, obviously, the L.C. Walker, founder of the Shaw Walker, L.C. Walker Arena. It's a proud legacy since 1960. The arena opened in 1960, so it's roughly 65 years old, 64 years old. As you guys know, it's a prominent entertainment fixture in our community. Hub for musical concerts, sporting events, men's leagues, and youth hockey. All of our sporting events include hockey, professional indoor soccer, and professional arena football, as well as graduations. I didn't have that on there. Lumberjacks are part of the Tier 1 Junior Ice Hockey, the USHL, the United States Hockey League, Risers Professional Soccer Team, the North National Premier Soccer League, and the West Michigan Ironmen Professional Arena Football League. I've just got some pictures here depicting kind of the evolution of how far the building has come. That's when it started out, 1960-ish. That's how it looked when I was a kid, still, until it kind of the evolution where it went into stadium seating, which was roughly, I think, 5,800 seats, into what we have now modern, that was the renovation done roughly 6 years ago, where we dropped down 700 seats. See, just loosely here, some of the suites that were added. So overall, aesthetically, the modifications done. In 2023, the city improved our ADA access from Western Avenue using a small alleyway between the arena and the CIO hall. This alley consisted of a ramp which gave public access to the restrooms to the inside of the arena, as well as solve some egress issues. We also solved some storage issues, which you see there. The fund source for that was $550,000 we used from ARPA funds, and we actually used $270,000 of water in the sewer fund. So it's $820,000 total of the funds used for that. In 2015, the arena lost its only storage. With the addition of the convention center, the loss of storage was never accounted for until 2023 when we invested into the Thayer Street project. We reclaimed some of that. As part of the approved Lumberjacks renovation, we would like to repurpose locker room A, giving us storage for forklifts, snow blowers, turf, stages, arena flooring, etc. The space is adjacent to our current garage, so that just depicts it. That wall that you see behind the turf goes right into locker room A. This would solve all of our liabilities for crossing the street. Many of you guys know we cross the street daily throughout the winter months on a forklift with giant rolls of turf, staging, arena flooring, and it's not safe. So this could bring everything on site, as well as clean up some of the blight on shoreline parking by getting rid of our storage containers and debris on that lot. This is just an overview real quick. The next couple slides will show you more in depth. But you saw the evolution of the main building. What you'll be seeing here is the concourse or the lower level in the tunnel has never changed since 1960. We did do new arena floors, but the structure of the locker rooms and that space has not changed. So with the Lumberjacks renovation, what you're seeing here is basically the proposed storage space. Their locker room will now come out of the red area, the double doors, and move past their skate sharpening area right onto the arena floor. The larger space at the top is our garage door. So with the removal of the wall on the left, right in the center of your screen, that would open up locker room A into just a giant storage for us. The Lumberjacks are covering that, all the demo and all the finishing work in their scope of construction. They'll also be moving their laundry facility into a portion of what is now locker room A, which will centralize it for their team and the visiting teams when they do laundry on the weekends. This right here, and I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. So, on the left is the current state of locker room E, the old skate room, and the tunnel that goes down to G, which used to be storage. Years ago, G was converted into a kind of a multi-purpose overflow locker room. E is a very small locker room that isn't up to standards with showering, sinks, or size capabilities to house a youth team, let alone a men's team. The skate shop has gone through many conversions of pro shops, snack areas, so on and so forth. So on the right side, what you'll see is with the Lumberjacks taking space from the Olympia room, which you see skate sharpening. Sorry to confuse you guys, but that skate sharpening room is currently our Olympia room where we do all the scheduling, our video boards to go, locker room assignments, payments, things like that. Will be brought into the tunnel. They will be paying for that as well, the build. We can repurpose the skate room to house, whether it be pro shop, tape, wax, laces. I know you guys are aware of obviously bringing Kyle involved into this with Parks and Rec and having a permanent space for them to operate public skate rentals, storage, so on and so forth. And then just the repurposing of locker room E to accommodate a full team, restroom, showers, so on and so forth. And then this just kind of addresses some of the capital improvements that we have looked at 5 to 7 years, conducting a reserve study, which will give us a deeper outlook on 20 to 30 years out of all of the equipment in the arena, everything that can be fixed, arena seating, shoreline snow melt, center ice snowboard, Trinity Health Sports Performance entry, outdated, bringing that up to code, and then some interior access concerns, and then the fund source would that be the revitalization placement, the RAP grant, up to $1 million. So I can let Pete explain a little bit of that on how that grant affects the arena. A lot of these things on the capital improvement were not necessarily super important right now, but with this money being available to us at, I believe, 50 cents to the dollar, it's taken increased importance of how we can allocate those funds. So that's tomorrow. I'll be presenting just for ask for the approval to move forward with the construction of locker room A. On the agenda for tonight, it's actually 145,000. It says 135 tonight. It's closer to 145. It was 135, and they asked for a 10% buffer. So tomorrow's agenda is reflected correctly on everything.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. LeMay. Care to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, Pete Wills, Director of Government Relations, Mayor, Commissioners. I just want to take a minute just to explain the fund source and how we've arrived at being able to continue to invest in the facility. So late in 2022, or mid 2022, the city applied and it included $1 million for this type of ADA work. Submitted about $11 million grant proposal, $1 million for the facility or the arena, $5 million for the Lakeview Lofts development, and $5 million for the 881st development. So that was $11 million. What was approved was $6 million in total. The city decided to award the dollars evenly between Lakeview Lofts and 881st. At the end of last year, unfortunately, we had to redirect dollars from the 881st project in order to keep the $6 million without having to return any of those funds. And so of the 881st money, the $3 million, we awarded $2 million back to the Lakeview Lofts development and $1 million for the arena. And so the work that was done in 2023 is consistent from the placemaking standpoint within the spirit of the current MEDC RAP 1.0 and 2.0 placemaking program. And so what we're doing with that $1 million, we will recoup the expenses that we incurred in 2023. And then Jake had described additional projects at the arena going forward. And so the way that the state is structuring this grant is in order to receive the $1 million, you've got to have $2 million in expenses. Or for example, the Lakeview Lofts project, having received $5 million, they've got to have a $10 million, at least a $10 million project. So as Jake described, we have to incur some additional expenses and conduct some additional work in the same way that we conducted it last year in order to make the facility more accessible from an ingress and egress standpoint. So a little complicated the way that the state has structured their program. We really didn't envision ourselves. It does allow us to continue to invest in this wonderful facility.
Thank you. Appreciate that context with regard to the grant and appreciate the presentation on the proposed modifications to the arena. Look like some well-needed improvements. Commissioners, questions? Comments? All right, so you've answered some of my questions already. One of my couple of outstanding questions, though. Will the new storage space be able to accommodate basketball flooring as well?
To answer your question, it could. I didn't take that into account when looking to replace the storage containers across the street. Primarily what we're looking to get inside of the building is our arena flooring and the turf. That will take up primarily all 450 square feet there. And then we have staging that can go into Thayer. So from the research that I've done previously, when you had asked, the flooring needs to be stored in a temperature climate controlled. So that would be a possibility. It would just kind of defeat the purpose of us not crossing shoreline for the heavy on the equipment.
They're saying the renovations right now could not, the anticipated renovations right now would not be able to accommodate the addition of the basketball flooring. Is that what I'm understanding?
Basketball flooring, turf, with the addition of the other things,
yeah.
correct.
Okay. The reason why I asked, interest in the prospects of exploring returning basketball to our arena, the impediment to that has, what I've heard continuously, is we don't have storage, we don't have storage, we don't have storage for it.
Right.
And that's not to say we're going out tomorrow. We've approved, we have a capital budget saying we're going to go buy basketball flooring, but there's been some discussion of perhaps renting the basketball flooring, putting on a tournament with teams locally, or high school teams, or startup teams, or bringing in the Lake Michigan, West Michigan Lakehawks to have a game or games on a trial basis, and see if it's something that we do then want to make that capital investment in buying the flooring on an ongoing basis. So that's why I bring it up, and I'm just wondering how we might be able to. Do you see a way forward in the regard that if we did say go through that, rent it, do those special events, there's a desire for us to buy flooring permanently so that we can return basketball to the arena? Do you see a way forward, even if it's not in this current storage, is there a way forward to add that climate controlled storage on site?
I think this allows it makes it more feasible with some shuffling. Once the Jacks relinquish some of their current space storage wise, between the arena and the annex, we have a space that we capture quite a bit of square footage. Depending on how we can store the floor or bring the turf and maneuver some things, it makes it more realistic. I can't commit to until we see what the square footage is, and I haven't really done the research of how that's stored in regards to space. But I think that from a temporary perspective, yes, this allows us to get creative and maybe swap out flooring to put in there and have turf. But again, until we get the square footage, right now this is only accounts for us not having to cross shoreline.
Okay, thank you. So I heard that it's $145,000 now with the contingency fee. Anticipating being able to finance that through the $1 million grant. Still work to be done on how we utilize the rest of that grant. Did I hear there's the prospect of potentially even reimbursement for prior expenditures, so we might be able to get reimbursement out of that grant? Okay, that'd be excellent. Are there plans, as part of your thinking going forward of how to use the balance of that, does that include adding lighting to the small alleyway between the CIO hall and the arena? Because we've added the option to access those bathrooms externally for public events, but it's particularly when it's not daylight, it's a pretty dark alley and not necessarily inviting or safe. So I'm just wondering if we have plans to add some lighting to that alleyway.
You're right. It's not part of it. When this was kind of brought up, I reverted back to our capital improvements, and we looked kind of with the 50 cents to the dollar reimbursement. I kind of looked to our higher priced items, arena seating, scoreboard, things like that could fit the criteria of the reimbursement. I haven't done the lighting just because of the fact that I thought we'd get more bang for our buck with potentially the seating, the scoreboard, and snow melt systems, so on and so forth.
Thank you. Well, that's all the questions I have. So I appreciate your work on this. Commissioners, another opportunity for any questions that might have come up. All right. Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah. I just have a curious question because you brought up basketball. Let's say it all worked out and we were able to get a floor that worked for us and store it properly or whatever. The boards there, because I know the football team, hockey team, and soccer team all have the boards up when they play their sport, where normally basketball, there's not the boards up. Those would have to stay up during basketball?
Bigger venues, you know, obviously Little Caesars Arena, they've
Right.
got crews, they would remove everything.
Yeah.
They've got the technology now where they actually have floors that just completely come right out of the seating. But I believe the dimensions of a basketball court would fit within the board, so we wouldn't have to. We would just have to get creative with the seating. There are 4 panels of the boards that come out for egress just to meet code when people are down on the floor. But I can double check on that, what the dimensions. I believe they would fit. Ice surface is 17,000 square feet. It's 85 feet wide and 200 feet long, which
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to the vote on it tomorrow.
Just want to
Oh, yes, Mr.
Say-
Manager.
thank you, Jake. Great job. It was a good presentation. I know you put a lot of effort into this, and I appreciate you doing this. Thanks.
Next up, Parks Capital Improvement Plan draft and master plan survey results. Welcome, sir. If you please introduce yourself.
Hey, I am Kyle Krzyzewski, Director of Parks and Recreation for City of Muskegon.
Good evening. No, we can get tech to cooperate.
There we go.
Okay, go that place.
All right. There's a beautiful picture of P. Marquette, close to sunset. And do it. Okay, so why are we here? So we've had a underfunded park system, which was very common. I got into the workforce out of college right around that time, and jobs were thin, funding was thin, all across the country. It was one of the items that was cut around the Great Recession. So, so there was the department, the director was taken out of the department, and the department pretty much just became parks, where it was just mowing and doing maintenance. Not many capital purchases and investments. A lot of blight removal, just day-to-day maintenance. So then in 2022, the commission voted to devote $6.1 million, 4.5 of that being ARPA funds, the remaining being conventional and parking revenue, or conventions that are naming rights and parking revenue. Right there shows you a pretty good explanation of that. So we had the funding in place. Next step was to hire a Parks and Rec director, which I had the honor of being hired as that. Big emphasis from day one was getting our parks to a higher standard and making all the improvements that we that our residents have discussed us needing and that we've noticed. So we found the best way to do that. You know, I walked around, looked at the parks. Obviously, I could have just given a list and done that, but we found it more important and impactful to have engagement. So we took our 2022 master plan that was published, and we expanded on the engagement aspect of that. So we put out a survey, which I'll get to next slide to go get more into that. But that is how we helping with our decision making. And also in November of 2023, the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee was created, which has helped us to pretty much adopt everything I've brought to commission since they started was voted on and approved by them. So they've been very helpful governing body. So the surveys, heavy emphasis on marketing. Deborah and the community engagement team helped out a lot with it as well. We had QR signs all over town. A lot of city vehicles with QR codes on them. We got very creative with the ways we could get out there and broadcast this. We also had park parties at 7 parks that had 10% or less feedback from the 2022 survey. So those were, it was 170 responses. So any park that had 17 or less, and actually now I'm thinking about it, it was 5%. So any park that had 9 or less people give feedback on, we went and had a park party there to help promote and get people out. We had some bounce houses, we had pizza parties. It was a nice way to get the community together, and we had some nice turnouts. So that ended up in giving us a jump from 171 responses to 935, and we had 1,851 questions answered. The survey was posted on Connect Muskegon. We also, at the parties, we had physical paper surveys for people to fill out as well. And also local organizations helped amplify our reach. Actually, I was going through old emails, remembered Boys and Girls Club helped us, school helped us, a couple other organizations, the YMCA helped us as well. And it was interesting to watch because you would see just jumps in the daily survey, and that was because we'd either have partners share it or we'd have little work sessions where partners would have people get together and do survey responses. So those were very impactful. So other tools that we made to help make these decisions on what improvements to make. So the survey was a large part of that. We actually have an equity-centered capital improvement plan that when I first started, I met with the city of Grand Rapids to see how do you make these decisions when you have such a diverse audience and park usage. And so that was one thing that they used. It's, to be honest, the shape that our parks is in, it was pretty obvious what needed to be fixed, but that helped us to see where there's some more inequities in our park system. Also, staff recommendations. We have a park supervisor, another harbor and campground supervisor that helps us, and also, from my knowledge from working in parks, also national park metrics and standards. As you can see there, that's just kind of that exact little graphic. Probably didn't have a huge deal on it, but there's a whole book of information like that put out by the National Recreation and Parks Association that kind of helps. It pulls all the information from all the parks, and so when we're thinking about issues like playgrounds, we look at how many residents we have and how many playgrounds we have, and if we are in a tough situation about if we want to make it a $400,000 playground or a $180,000 playground. Numbers like that were quite helpful. And we definitely had a prioritization of improving existing parks and assets. There's a lot of, I guess we'll call them shiny objects or new ideas, new plans, new improvements that are out there, especially with 15 years of not making large capital improvements. There's always new amenities. There's hundreds of new cool things you could add, but our emphasis the whole time has been to stay true to what we have and improve all the existing assets that we have. So some highlights from the plan. Improvements for over 20 parks. All the wards are represented. There are 10 new playgrounds, 6 major restroom renovations, starting up park rangers and beach rangers, beach safety equipment. Actually, one of the beacons right there, the big red one, I'm going to a demo at Holland next week. That's one of the new devices that I budgeted for to have a handful of those on our beaches. Several grants identified as well. A couple future acquisition amounts in there. And also some individual park master plans that we devoted some funding to. Those were Cruzy, McGrath, Campbell, and Richards. The reason we chose those, they have some very big infrastructure issues. Cruzy with the whole boardwalk and playground and parking lot. McGrath, the tennis courts, that's also Cruzy, McGrath, are one of them. popular parks. Campbell doesn't have much of a function. And Richards, it's, our one true paddle park that we have. So and also there's some equity scores to play into that. And just for a quick snapshot, this isn't like a finished product. It's just where the first idea is at for Campbell Park. I just wanted to explain, what it is that we're looking at when we say master plans. So for instance, that park doesn't function very well right now. So we do have a little plan here about having a nice walking path with some fitness stations and trying to activate that park. So, and there will be public engagement, so I don't want anyone to think that this is what's happening at Campbell Park, but it's one of the thoughts that we have for it. So that's a short presentation on it. We also have the so a draft of the capital improvement plan is here as well. I'm not going to go through 40 items right now, but the majority of them, these were all in the packet a week ago. So the majority in them, like we said, they're improving the current parks. We have our biggest issues at. Some fun things in there as well, but for the most part, fixing what we have. And then, speaking of not going into lengthy things, this is a little over 50 pages, but we've worked on it at length, and we went back and forth interdepartmentally and also with the advisory committee, and it's brought us to the survey that kind of has helped show us where people want improvements. Not everything can get done that's voted on. However, we feel like the most reasonable and the most needed improvements happen at our parks. So with that, I bring this to just seek feedback from the commission. I'd like to get this adopted soon. As far as it was 6.1 million, we have just under that on here. So trying to fit everything in that we possibly can, trying to represent every ward and as many parks as we possibly can. So now I turn to commission for feedback.
Thank you, Karczewski. Commissioners, quick. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director. Good job on the presentation.
Thank you.
And as you mentioned, this is not in my ward, but Campbell Park. I was just over that way the other day, and looking at that park, it's not a lot going on there. I could see the purpose of actually putting some effort in bringing that park back to life, because I was looking at the children, and they really wasn't engaged in too much. There wasn't a lot for them there. I did see a little playground and things. But one of the questions is, okay, you said you're looking for this amendment. Doing this amendment, would you extend the survey back out to the public also for input or anything like that? Is that something you're looking to do?
No, I think we're pretty happy with our number.
Okay.
Close to 1,000. We will go back to the community for several of these improvements. As far, for instance, Cypress Park, there's a large area there where the skate park used to be. And so when we do make that decision, we'll have some discussions. But no, we had it open for, I think we've exhausted all efforts. And as a person I talk a lot with Muskegon County. Survey fatigue is a real thing, and I think that we hit a wall with how much we can possibly amplify the survey. And I wanted a higher number, of course, but we are ready to get it approved and start to do the work, because 40 RFPs and projects to manage within 2.5, 3 years sounds like pretty doable, but it's it'll be pretty stressful.
Okay. And
Doable but daunting at the same time.
It is, yeah. I have like 5 going on right now, and it's a lot. Yeah, it's something that's kind of overlooked because it's really operational and in the emails and the phone calls and the meetings. But and of course, every master plan would have multiple
Right.
contractors.
Like with your community parks, and just looking at the survey and in Ward 2, I noticed like, and I'm speaking specifically at Smith Ryerson Park, one of the recommendations, and I've stressed this before, was the Wi-Fi activity. How likely is that to happen with this?
That actually,
project.
we have 3 parks that that cost could provide Wi-Fi at, and we actually went around and tested the the connectivity for Wi-Fi, and Smith Ryerson by far had the highest rate. So that would be, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that's the top candidate for Wi-Fi at the park.
Okay, good.
And also the size of the park, like the thought of broadcasting, into McGrath Park would be a bit difficult, but at Smith Ryerson you could put on the pavilion and reach probably pretty much the entire park, and you have enough connectivity where more than one person could be streaming or doing something. A lot of the other parks you get one person on YouTube and that's it. So we wouldn't want to bring it unless it could actually be useful.
Yeah.
So in the top 3 were Smith Ryerson, McCrae, and then Camp El Reese were tied, and McGrath was a little under that. So yeah, we had some good numbers.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll see you out there on your phone on the Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I say that because with internet connection, some areas and the hardship for people and families not able to afford that. That's an opportunity to connect to the Wi-Fi in an area such as a park. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, some people look at it a little odd because the park's about getting outside, but there's, if you have schoolwork, it's a great place to go and bring a laptop and do some work at. So
Exactly.
yeah, and the cost is really pretty affordable for about $5,000 a park to get a box and.
Oh wow. Right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
But we would, so those are the current infrastructure that exists and connectivity capacity and whatnot. But
Yeah.
If we were in the future interested in adding Wi-Fi to additional parks beyond those 3, we
Yeah.
just require additional legwork and perhaps more capital, be a little bit more capital intensive to improve the connectivity and capacity at those parks.
Yeah, it'd be. I mean, everything's possible with the right amount of money. But I'd yield to Jason Bowes and IT. But I'm sure if there's a park we really wanted it at, we could put our heads together, figure out a proposal for a cost.
Good, thank you. Any follow-up, Commissioner?
No.
All right,
Thank you.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Director, excuse me, as a freshman commissioner, I'm not privy to everything that happened before January. But, so the commission has already approved the $6 million budget?
Yes.
So with this being on tomorrow's commission agenda.
Or they've voted to dedicate funds. Correct.
We've
Yeah.
had a discussion and a commitment. I don't think we've actually formally, because I talked to Pete about that. Did we actually have a formal vote on the 4.5 million? No. Okay. So we've discussed it and we've had a soft commitment, but we have not had a formal vote committing the 4.5 million to parks. But we probably should have a formal vote because it does need to be allocated a budget before year end 2024 and then spent by year end 2026.
And the funds that you're speaking of are the ARPA funds?
The ARPA dollars, yes.
Okay.
The American Rescue Plan Act.
So tomorrow's vote, we're not voting on that?
Could you, Mr. Manager
Sure.
or Director, could you expound on what a
Yeah.
capital improvement plan is and how
So-
that functions?
So what you're voting on tomorrow is the update to the master plan, which includes prioritization of investments in the park. So then that's basically a roadmap that the Parks and Recs Department, DPW, the whole city will use as we build budgets and as we go forward through our various planning processes. So this is basically giving the commission's blessing that you agree with what Director Karczewski and his team are presenting.
No, with the caveat that we're not, this is not in cement at the same time, and nor are we absolutely obligated because this, like it mentioned here, it's still going to go through the normal process of purchases, and it's going to each thing would come to the commission and require approval. But as the manager said, this is a roadmap that empowers staff to move these projects forward. But ultimately, the commission would still have a final say before pulling the trigger on them.
Okay. And Director, I've really taken a look at some of the capital improvement plan items on here. Compared with some of the survey things, I wanted to ask you, can you explain where the city can help? I saw a lot of the parks in the surveys voted for youth sports. Can you tell me how the city, because I understand that teams are going to support themselves depending on what sport it is with their gear and equipment and jerseys and stuff like that. How's the city of Muskegon supporting youth sports in our Parks and Rec system?
Yeah, when I first started, I wanted to start as many youth sports as possible, but then I connected with the schools and local organizations and found out what they run. It's important to me not to have competing programs, so a couple things there. We are good partners, and we help them out when we can. So there's a program side, there's a capital side. For instance, through a grant, I got new field goal posts to put in at Seifert Park, so that will help the Lakeside football program to improve. We also put in a concession stand for them. We built that into our storage building out there. So we are helping them out with capital items, and we're also, for instance, one of the big things I heard was we don't have any soccer. So this July we'll be starting a Parks and Rec youth soccer league. So we're both starting programs and supporting current programs.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Kugo. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just want to acknowledge the immense amount of effort that you have put into this, and I don't think people realize how much work stuff like this entails. And you came into a very open opportunity, and I'm just really impressed with how much you dove right into it and really have produced a tremendous amount of opportunity for the community. Just looking over the list of potential improvements is, it's really comprehensive. There was a clear focus on equity and spreading the love around the community to different interest groups and to different age groups, and just making sure that it's really accessible. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for all of your work.
Yeah, thank you. It would have been easy to say, oh, these things need to be done because I'm an expert, but really it was because we couldn't do everything. So the engagement in the survey was huge. It gives us the backing to why we're doing this. Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner German? Well, before just a second.
okay.
Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask right now?
No, just echo Vice Mayor St. Clair's. This list. It's nice. Good job, Pam.
Excellent. Yes. Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor. Director, I was looking for the item, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I saw something about plans for like future park
Yes.
you had in there. Could you just kind of explain, is there a specific place that you're looking or for this future park?
Yeah. So we do have for Windward Point. If
Okay.
once that comes around, if those are deemed, ready for sale, we had talked about $150,000 with the matching DNR grant of $150,000 would give us a handful of lots on the water for that development, and would be a real nice place for some green space.
Okay. And I saw the amenities that was proposed as well. Now, and these are opera dollars now, and maybe the manager could explain my question. Answer my question. Anything that was impacted in the eyes of COVID during that time, we can allocate funding to those specific projects, or by
So-
looking at a park that wasn't available at that time or didn't have an impact in it? How would that work?
So, one of the things that we found through COVID was that parks services were heavily used. So, any type of investment in parks or expanding the use of parks and public spaces is deemed an appropriate use of ARPA dollars, just because of the heavy use that parks got. Additionally, the dollars that we got from the federal government for this round of ARPA funding is related to city services, and parks fall squarely within what our city services are able to be used for. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing there.
Okay. And even though it don't exist right now, but we
Correct.
can invest.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to get some clarity on that. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
And there's the convention center parking revenue funds in there as well. But
yeah. Okay.
Hopefully we identify additional revenue streams in the future as well.
absolutely.
Continued investment, because this is just scratching the surface, of the level of investment that's necessary into our parks and recreation system and programming. It's much needed and much welcomed investment and improvement, without a doubt. But we know that there's needs beyond this. But this is great work. I mean, without duplicating Vice Mayor St. Clair, but trying to complement what her remarks are. It has been incredible to see this progress play out, and it's so exciting and appreciated to have you at the helm of our revived Parks and Recreation Department, and the intentionality in which you and your team have approached that engagement. That we not only brought the survey back online and reprised that, but went out into our communities and went out into parks to meet with our residents and users of those parks, to have those conversations and seek their feedback to help inform this process in the development of our park system. That is so appreciated. And those responses were over a 5-fold increase from the prior time. And we're going to be doing continued engagement, as you mentioned, with the individual master plans. Like, maybe we won't have an online survey again. I don't know what you foresee there, but there's going to be at least additional on-the-ground, intimate engagement with users of those parks. And those individual master plans are Cruzy Park, Campbell Field, Richards Park, and Hartshorn Marion Park. And so there will be that additional intentional, intimate engagement with our residents and users of that. And I really appreciate your emphasis on an equity-based approach to investments in our park system, and doing that research and bringing it forward. Your engagement with our community at large, as well as the new Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee as well, who has embraced this. Speaking of that committee, one question I did have was with regard to all park signage. So I do see we have money for that for this coming fiscal year. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that park signage also includes wayfinding for waterfront public access. Is that your understanding? We knew we discussed it at the committee, but I wanted to, if that figure includes that, or if we may need to adjust that figure to include wayfinding for waterfront public access.
Had a lot of conversations about signage since I posted this, and really, I guess short answer, yes. Somewhat longer answer, we're going to prioritize. That's the money we're going to have for park signage, and we're going to prioritize what's most important to put out there. And wayfinding is probably a little more important than, I don't want to say this X park having a new sign, but at the end of the day, we're going to prioritize the most important things for the city of Muskegon.
Okay, so we'll be revisiting that, and if it calls for it, we may need to adjust it.
Yeah, and we do have an annual budget too, which things can work out of. But and also, just to say, I appreciate the credit, but the community engagement team, recreation coordinators, park supervisors. I certainly wasn't setting up and breaking down every bounce house, and in the middle of the summer, they're a lot more fun to jump on than they are to set up and break down. So a lot of hard work from the whole staffing went into that. So not just me.
Yeah, those were great events. I went to several of them, and
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
Both
I don't
with
need
our
pizza and ice cream
permanent staff
every
and
day,
seasonal
but it got people out. So yeah.
Very nicely done. And yes, please express to all of your colleagues the Commission's appreciation and kudos. So, Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah, one follow up. I believe this is for the manager. Could we just vote on it like by the end of the month? Like if they have $4.5 million in ARPA funds, but we technically haven't voted on it, can we vote on it so that they
So
know that they have it available?
yeah, I mean, we could put it on the next meeting, the 23rd,
Late, yeah, the late one.
or sometime in May. We probably want to do it before we get the budget finalized because that'll help with that. I'm looking at different division heads around the room. So yeah, we can get that rolling so that way it's locked in there.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to like. No matter what you do, maybe you're not a hiker, but you play disc golf. Maybe you walk your dog. Maybe you got a kid and he plays baseball. Like there's so much stuff that our community in different areas or different parks around our community love to do. If we're looking at the capital improvement plan and things might tweak here or there, hey, we're gonna move some money here and there. I would just love to make sure that they have their money to be able to do it. Not that it's going to go anywhere, but if we haven't voted on it yet, then I think that we should probably do that.
Yeah, it's been an operating
Agreed.
premise that we're using that money for such, but it's a formality that is necessary still to have a formal vote. So yes, probably sooner the better for that. And wrapping up, also I want to express thanks to our community and all the people that did respond to the surveys and showed up at the parks parties and has otherwise reached out to you and said, hey, how can we improve my neighborhood park? Or, I have interest in helping, the folks that came out to the park cleanup event just recently. So many thanks to our community and our park users for stepping up and engaging with us and helping to inform this process and being a friend and a good neighbor. So thank you. Thank you, community. Any final thoughts or questions? Commissioners? No? All right. We're good to go. Thank you. Next up, city manager evaluation process. So, as you may recall, at the beginning of this year, when we established the commission, I created an ad hoc committee to evaluate the evaluation of our city manager and look at updating that process. 3 members of our commission were appointed to that: Vice Mayor St. Clair, Commissioner Gorman, and Commissioner German. And so we do have a draft of an evaluation. And so who was the committee chair?
We didn't do that, but I can speak on it.
Okay. Vice Mayor St. Clair, can you speak to your process, the committee's process evaluation?
Thanks. We were not so formal as to appoint a committee chair. We just started doing the work. So, yes. So, as you said, the 3 of us, along with our city clerk assistants, went through and put together a proposed city manager evaluation. The evaluation that we're looking at is in front of you. It narrows down the focus quite a lot from the former evaluation, which was, I think there was 16 questions. It was very redundant and not a good time to fill out, and not particularly helpful, I think, so far as a feedback opportunity to the city manager. So the evaluation that we ended up working with is a lot shorter, but it's still quite thorough. We did go through and change some wording to make it work better for our goals and our community. And one of the things that we wanted to be sure that we included was feedback opportunity from more than the commissioners, particularly with staff. So we are asking that the department heads also be included. in answering 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, and 8. And then we looked at the idea of also expanding it to the community. I think that might be more of an aspirational goal than something that we can pull off this year, because we'd have to figure out how to do that in an anonymous way, and we have a really tight timeline because we have committed to get the manager's evaluation done on time, and Commissioner Gorman and I are going to make sure that that happens. So given that, I think I know that we can get the commission done on time. I believe we can get the department heads results on time. I don't know that we have the opportunity to build out something for the community, but I'd like to see us look at that for next year. Maybe we do it off cycle and that it isn't lined up directly in the evaluation workflow. But I do want us to look at how do we give the community opportunity to provide feedback on their experience with the way the city functions, and you know, in part the city manager, who is the face of the city in many cases, but also not the only entity that we probably would do well to solicit feedback. So this might be an opportunity for us to do something different and really cool with public engagement going forward. I don't think we have time to do it by, I mean, really we need to start working on this next month to get his evaluation done in time. So given that, is this on for a formal vote for tomorrow?
Yeah.
I didn't see it on the.
We can.
It's not on there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was. We were waiting to see if there was going to be any changes before we added
Okay.
it on.
Oh, good call.
So
Yeah.
given
So,
that,
yeah.
I would propose that we change it to remove the public component from this evaluation cycle, because we just don't have the time to pull that together and build that. It will require IT and Deborah to do some legwork for us, and but I do believe that there's no reason that we can't include the department heads, and I mean, we can give them a paper copy in a box to put it in if necessary. We can't do that so much with the community. So any questions or anything that Commissioner Gorman or German would add to my report?
Yeah, a good report, Vice Mayor. And you know, switching to this type of evaluation, I think it's different. It's not as time consuming and adding all, you know, the details. I mean, the other ones, I've done 12 of them, you know, if I can remember, for each of the city managers in the past. And I think the good piece I like about it, because as a commissioner throughout my years here, under the operations of the city manager, you have your staff, and sometimes staffs have concerns, and to hear back from the staff, because I would always ask them, hey, how are things going? This way they have some input. They can address those concerns. You know, city managers sometimes take a little bit of heat, you know, you know, and so it seemed like city manager Cyphers, your ride so far has been pretty good, which is good. You're doing a good job, and appreciate that. And you know, your feedback and consistency and the transparency that you provide is greatly appreciated. So I just kind of save my stuff, you know. But I'd like the fact that, you know, when you could work with your team and everybody's aboard and on the same page, that makes a huge difference. So have a evaluation like this, I think it's good. It's not that intense, but at the same time, it gives feedback, you know, from the commissioners and also the staff here, which I think is essential. So,
Thank you, Commissioner German. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I just want to reiterate, we're really excited to get away from a range of like on a scale of 1 through 5, and 2 means something different to me than someone else. So it's just a little bit more straightforward, and I do think that will help provide a better opportunity than getting feedback from leadership staff. But I just wanted to say then, as far as the community piece of it, reminding our team that we do have new communication tools that Deborah's done such a good job implementing, and like we have a city manager that's doing regular video updates for our community. So I think as we massage whatever that looks like moving forward, like maybe we already actually have something in process and they're getting feedback about those communication pieces, that could contribute to the overall evaluation that ultimately the commission is responsible for giving, not the entire community. But we are your voice at the table. So just want to remind the community you can always talk to your commissioners about how you feel things are going, and we will carry that forward. But very excited about, again, how efficient this process was, and thanks to my fellow commissioners for making it that easy.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman.
I just have questions. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, because I wasn't on the board, I just have a couple of questions. So, if we implement these changes, it'll just be department heads. It won't be. Staff is relevant term, so I don't know what staff means. As opposed, I definitely like so that we get it done on time. Not that we want to exclude the public from anything ever, but so that we can, because I know when I came in, a couple of meetings before we were sworn in, I attended, and they were kind of going over the results of the city manager's evaluation, and we said, hey, this year we want to get it done on time. So to get it done on time is something that's important. So I was just wondering who all will do the evaluation.
So we, the three of us thought that department heads would be the way that we would like to go, because those are the individuals who are direct reports to the city manager, rather than having it be the entirety of the city staff. That isn't necessarily indicative of the work that the city manager's doing, and is a lot more information than we might want. But the department heads are direct reports, and we thought would give a pretty good perspective into how the manager is doing.
Perfect.
So to clarify, looking at the division heads then, not all the department heads? So the division heads would be public safety division head, finance and administration division head.
So we
Or
did
you
drill
want
down a
all
little
of the
bit.
departments?
Yes, we started with division heads, and that's a very small pool, so we decided to go down to
Okay.
just to broaden it out a little more. Excuse
Okay.
me.
So that's an important distinction
Yes.
that I think we need to understand, because not all the department heads are necessarily direct reports to the city
Correct.
manager. They
That-
report to the division head, and the division head reports to the city manager. So if we want it to be broad, that's fine, but I just want to make sure that we understand that it be broader to all the department heads. It may be helpful if we got a list of all the department heads to understand what that is. And would that then also include, say, Mr. Wills, or would that include Deputy Manager Mike Zell? Would they be included in that? So,
I guess to kind of make it simple, we have a division department head email list. So it would probably just go to that group, of which Director Wills, the deputy city manager are both part of that. All department heads and the division heads, there's about 24 individuals, excluding myself and Kim.
Okay.
So there's 24 individuals that would be on that list.
can you send that to us now or this evening, so that we have that before tomorrow?
Yeah.
If this is going to be on the agenda for a vote tomorrow, just so that we clearly understand who all is going to.
Yep.
Did you have follow up, Commissioner Kilgo?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. with regard to, and I really like well, first of all, thank you, Commissioner Gorman, Commissioner Dermott, and Vice Mayor St. Clair for your review of this evaluation process and bringing forward this proposal. I really like the addition of the department heads and the division heads to give us insights that we may not necessarily have. Like, end of the old evaluation process, there were a lot of questions. Some of the questions that we really couldn't answer very well because we didn't have those insights, or we weren't shadowing the city manager, day to day to understand, some of the more intimate engagements that he has with staff and the different departments. So I think this is a nice addition to include the anonymous input from the department and division heads. I like the streamlining of this as well. Some of the most pertinent questions, and then how it's being evaluated rather than the 1 through 5, as Commissioner Gorman indicated. It's now, it exceeds expectations, meet expectations, or needs improvement. And then adding a number to that, so at least we do have a quantitative scoring as well, because that will then allow us to compare year over year. Was there an improvement? Was there backsliding? I do have some suggested tweaks. Some of them are very minor. In terms of the questions, they're pretty minor. And then the introductory is where I have some more, I guess, in-depth changes, maybe. But I just want to go through some of the minor tweaks. And some of it's really minor. You might even laugh. Really? Come on. But this is why I wanted to have the work session, so that we can discuss this and tweak it accordingly. But one of which is under communications, the second item under communications. It's just literally changing the word from ensures I to ensures E. That's it. Ensures E is a better, more appropriate wording for that there. Then for item, and no objections, I'm going to go through this are there any objections as I make these?
Ensures, yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So ensures with an E there. And then item 4, leadership. So ensures that commission's decisions are thought out, objective, and are legal and ethical. One, I would suggest taking out objective, because it's kind of a difficulty to put on a city manager to ensure that our decision making is objective. That's incumbent upon each of us, and I think it's a tall order to expect the city manager to enforce our objectivity, and so I would prefer just taking that word out. Are there any objections to taking out the word objective?
Where's that at,
It's
Mayor?
item 4, leadership.
Okay.
Where it says, as part of, so that's section 4, leadership. It says, provides the commission and the organization with real solutions and creative alternatives to issues and problems, anticipates and responds to issues, ensures that commission decisions are thought out, objective, and are legal and ethical.
I'm trying to think of how to word this, if I may.
Yeah, please.
So one of the tenets of the ICMA Code of Ethics that city managers operate under is ensuring that the advice we provide to the commission is thought out, objective, legal, and ethical. What you all do is what you all do. But as far as ensuring that the advice I provide, I'm not sure if that changes the.
I think that'd be great if you could just change it that ensures that the advice and counsel advice.
You couldn't even just say ensures that the commission decisions are based on advice that is
Sure, yeah.
thought out, objective, legal, and ethical.
I don't know which tenet that is off the top of my head.
My hesitation there is that, again, the onus is putting him on ensuring that everybody that provides input to the commission is objective, legal, and ethical versus him providing that to us. And I'd prefer the onus be on him, so he's responsible for him.
The definition of, I just looked up the Botanica definition of objective is not influenced by feeling, or it is hard. I don't think that there's a problem with the word in the context, objective in that standpoint of leadership. Fair and unbiased.
Because the way it's worded now, though, ensures that commission decisions are thought out, objective, and are legal and ethical. So the onus is being put on the manager to ensure that our decision making
I
is
understand what
objective.
you're saying. I
And
understand
that's
what
not
you're saying.
appropriate.
Yeah.
And also, we're not like, yes, we should be objective, but legally we don't have to
Correct.
be. Like,
Correct. Yeah, but I see what you're saying.
subjectivity can come into play, and we can say, you know what, that might be great, but for X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, I'm opposed to it.
Yeah, for him to ensure what one of us is being.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and yeah, we should change it somehow.
So do you have that language? Oh, you're looking it up.
I'm looking it up right now.
Because I like the way you phrase that.
Do you have other suggestions and we can loop back?
Yeah, well, if he changes that, then that's going to, or if we switch that wording around, then it affects a couple other parts of that very same sentence. So we'll circle back on that. And then under financial management, section 5, this is just a carryover from the previous evaluation that I liked and would like to add to that. So right now it says ensures the budget is properly, the proposed evaluation, ensures the budget is properly prepared, manages and communicates the budget, demonstrates ingenuity and creativity in approaching budgetary matters, including both short-term and long-range planning for the organization, maintains and prioritizes fiscal responsibilities. Language pulled from the previous evaluation, I'm considering including here is serves as final operating authority for budget, establishing the priorities of programs in relationship to income, authorizing expenditures, and developing funding mechanisms. Is there any concern or question about that sentence being added there? Of serves as final operating authority for budget, establishing the priorities of programs in relationship to income, authorizing expenditures, and developing funding mechanisms.
No objection, just clarification. You said income?
Or you could say revenue. You
Okay.
could use revenue instead of income there.
Okay.
The previous version used income, but I do think revenue is maybe more fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to change it to revenue. In relationship to revenue, okay. And then section 7, relationship with city commission. Says accessible to all city commissioners, provides regular updates to commissioners, keeping them informed about current and critical issues, follows through with commissioners' concerns. This is just a typo, and I probably shouldn't bring it up. I should just tell you. Add a possessive apostrophe after the end of commissioners, so it's commissioners' concerns. And then carries out and supports commission directives and actions. So it says carries out, right now it says carries out and supports commissioner, singular, possessive. So it basically was saying that he has to carry out any individual commissioner's directives and actions, and that's not appropriate. So just changing that to carries out and supports the commission directive and actions. So everyone's good with that?
Good with that.
Okay. Told you some of these are pretty minute, but that has a far-reaching implication. Just those couple letters.
Exactly.
And
I'm still
Okay.
searching. Sorry.
so the other thing is, this was also a carryover from the previous evaluation. I'd like to include it. I'd like to break it down to numbers so it's even more clear. But it was the introduction from the previous evaluation. And the way I broke it down was to numbered instead of one paragraph that was just kind of a little overwhelming as a paragraph. But anyhow, it's basically, so in addition to the existing introduction, including the city manager under the general direction of the city commission, 1, provides administrative supervision to all city departments and related agencies, 2, provides professional advice and authoritative recommendations in all matters before the commission, 3, directs implementation of commission mandates, 4, plans and administers the city budget, 5, supervises labor relations and personnel management activities, 6, participates in the design and implementation of major civil development projects, and 7, assures the satisfactory provision of services to city residents, and takes overall responsibility for the maintenance of a favorable public relations posture for city government with city residents, surrounding communities, and other local, state, and federal agencies. So that was the same language from the previous evaluation, just broken down, carried over, but broken down by bullet point, essentially.
Are you proposing inserting that into the introduction or replacing the introduction?
Inserting it, so the way I envisioned was inserting it after the first paragraph.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Any questions or concerns, objections?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, thank you.
Provides a nice clarification of what the city manager's job is.
Yeah, I
that
thought
we're
that was-
supposed to be evaluating regarding.
Yeah, I thought that was helpful. I saw it in the previous one. I was like, it's nice to spell that out. Even not just for us, but anyone else in the public reading that. Like, okay, now I understand, the extent of the responsibilities of the city manager. The only other change, and this is perhaps removing some language, is, and I understand the impetus behind it from the previous administration, but it is speaking to. So right now it says the goal of the evaluation is to evaluate professional performance, not the person occupying the office. Evaluations conducted by elected boards include an inherent high risk of high risk of partiality and or bias if they are judging the city manager as a person, particularly given the elected board's limited exposure to the city manager's day-to-day management activities. And then subsequent paragraph says, this prevents elected board members from evaluating the executive on personal characteristics that are not relevant to organizational performance and could otherwise include inaccurate or limited information, hearsay, or individual personal judgments. So the reason why I raise this is why I understand and appreciate the emphasis of the introduction, trying to focus your attention on the professional performance of the manager. I have some concern about the language about the personal thing, trying to strip that away entirely, or like this does not have any role or relevance. And while the focus certainly should be professional conduct and outcomes and results, at the same time, I don't necessarily want us to get away from recognizing that there are personality elements as well. Like, for instance, you could be delivering great results, like we're doing really well fiscally. We're making investments here. We've got police and fire going, and whatnot. But if you are a manager who is doing that and delivering positive results in those regards, that doesn't necessarily excuse you from being disrespectful or abusive to staff, the community, commissioners, or the like that still has an element to play in it. And so I don't necessarily want to divorce that personality piece from the evaluation entirely. And so that's why I just have some reservation about that particular language. And so I wanted to bring that to the commission's attention for discussion.
I think it
Hear
makes
what people's
sense
feedback.
because we've done it in the past, and I can see your point. Not saying that would happen, but it makes the city manager accountable and holds a good standard. Not saying that he's not doing that, but
Yeah, and this is not about him.
exactly.
This is about a generic city manager.
Exactly. So yeah, I could see some logic on that.
I wonder if there's a way. I think there's value in having this. I see value in your perspective. I wonder if there's a way that we can adapt this language to indicate that you don't get to be a jerk. Like, I don't have to be best friends with you, but you have to be respectful anyway. Because not everyone is for everyone. And, I think personality is, it's important that we understand that not everyone is gonna click, but it is also important that we ensure that everyone is acting in a professional manner and that we are evaluating them on their behavior as a professional, whether it's in their private life or not.
Yeah, so personality
Yeah.
within the profession.
Right,
'Cause
yeah.
I like that you guys propose removing the personality questions and the personality evaluations, because that's not exactly
Right.
like your general personality. No, that's not really germane, but like how
Right.
your personality intersects with the professional conduct. Did you have some? I'm sorry,
Well, yeah,
Commissioner Coco. Did you?
Yeah, I
have
was
something,
going to
Commissioner
add.
Manager?
So this part of the conversation we're having flows right into tenet 3 of the Code of Ethics, which says demonstrate by word and action the highest standards of ethical conduct and integrity in all public, personal, and professional relationships in order that the member may merit the trust and respect of the elected and appointed officials, employees, and public.
So can we just copy and paste that in?
Sure.
They seem to have done the work for us.
You copy
Tenet
and-
3. Okay.
Copy and paste that to Commissioner Kilgo.
Well, I like that. What Vice Mayor suggested, copying that in, but personal characteristics and personal judgments, characteristics. I can talk. Can tie into professionalism. But personal judgments, I think, get to more of what you were saying. Like, let's not take that away from. Let's not judge someone on their judgments on what they feel is right and wrong and everything else, but there's a level of professionalism that includes not being a jerk or something like Vice Mayor said. So I think you said that was the MML's wording?
ICMA.
ICMA. His wording, I think, is really good because it does speak to being of the highest character personally and professionally without taking something away from that person's judgment on what they feel is best for their position that they're in. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo.
yes, sir.
On the aspect of the incorporating anonymous public, soliciting public input anonymously, and incorporating the evaluation process going forward, and understanding that that's not something that would necessarily be feasible for our current timeline. Which, by the way, for everyone that at home and in the audience, our current timeline is to get the evaluation done by June 30th. That's what we've committed to annually, is getting the evaluations done by June 30th. On that piece of soliciting public feedback, I like the sentiment behind it, but I'm not super keen. I have reservations about the how that plays out and how that could be abused. And also, I see now each of us has an opportunity to individually solicit that feedback from our constituency. And be like, hey, we're about to do a city manager evaluation. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What are the positives? Like, we individually could do that already. And also, Mr. Manager had shared with me that he is a credentialed manager with the ICMA, which is the International Cities Managers Association. So everyone knows the acronyms. ICMA, not ICMA. ICMA. I made that mistake. Could you speak to that part of the credentialing that does require that?
Yeah, so once every 5 years,
Community
as
feedback.
part of there's the 360 review that has to happen, and there's different tools that are associated with that, and there is an option, not necessarily specifically to me, but to like how things are functioning within the city, or sorry, I shouldn't say to me, to the manager. So there would be that, there would be a tool that we could use out there. There's also, and the Vice Mayor and I discussed this earlier today, about maybe integrating it into a community survey and looking at how administration functions or something like that. So there's different tools that we could use to do that, to get the same information. And there are organizations out there that have those kind of tools already baked, that we could either use or replicate in some way. So yeah, but part of once every 5 years, credentialed managers have to go through a bigger review. It's more for our personal development, but it's also to be shared with the board, and can be used as part of the evaluation process. So,
Okay.
and they have very specific tools you have to use in that instance.
So I know that we talked about not having that in tomorrow is because it wasn't feasible to do this year. I guess we can revisit that at an LPC meeting or something, how we want to proceed, if we do want to incorporate that into the evaluation in the future, or if we want to utilize that 360 review and that be the opportunity for that additional engagement. Okay.
And then
you found...
Yeah, I found, so it's, the tenants have been being updated a little bit, and the tenant 5 was the one I was thinking of, and it's changed slightly. So what it says is submit policy proposals to elected officials, provide them with facts and technical and professional advice about policy options, and collaborate with them in setting goals for the community and organization. So it used to have a little bit more language about objective and sussing out the differences between if you go with option A or option B, type of a thing. So it's a little bit different than what it used to be, but it kind of still says the same thing. And I was thinking looking at I got to pull it back up here. It was number 4, I believe. Was that it? Yeah, number 4. I think if it was just to say ensures that recommendations made to the commission are thought out, objective, and are legal and ethical, because then that's putting the onus on what's going into the packet, what those recommendations are from staff, and ensuring that I'm kind of that the manager's office is that stopgap. Not that the department heads are going to be putting anything out on ethical or illegal, but making sure that that is thought through.
I really like
and so then that way it's on the office, and
Okay.
That's what you
as
can
opposed
control.
to, because as you rightly point out, the decisions that the commission makes can be based on many different factors. So
All right. I really like that. So it says ensures that the recommendations
to commission.
made to the city commission. Okay. Ensures that recommendations made to the city commission are thought out, objective, and are legal and ethical. All right. Excellente. Perfect. Well, that concludes my thoughts, questions, tweaks. Commissioners, is there anything else that you have to ask or add, or is there anything that you think may be missing that we should include, or otherwise, is everyone good to go?
Good dialogue. Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Then I'm going to send over these edits to the clerk's office for getting to the packet for tomorrow and for approval.
And I'll send tenant 3 over to you guys. It'll have to go to Kim. Ann is out, so Kim will be the one making the update. So cool. And then can I just add something? Yep.
Kim, oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I meant it. This is one of the reasons why I asked. Had pushed this on the work session because I wanted to hear from the city manager.
Yeah.
And your perspective on this evaluation. If there's anything that you think should be added for your own edification, personal development, and professional development.
No, I think the tool that the committee came up with is good. And I guess my one suggestion, this wouldn't be in the survey, would be that possibly in the early fall, maybe have the committee come back together and maybe have me in the conversation to figure out if there's other things that we missed or something like that. Because I think it's one of those things, because we're making the changes, they look good, but is there a blind spot that we don't see at this point? I do want to say I'm very excited about the 360 aspect of it. It's something that I want to have implemented with the staff, and I think it's only fair that I start first. And because of that, this will allow us to do that going forward. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Manager, and great work, committee members. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Downtown Muskegon Social District expansion. Welcome. well, I was going to say if the two of you would like to introduce yourselves, but if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Deborah Sweet. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the City of Muskegon. This might be the first time in Social District history here in the City of Muskegon that Dave Alexander is not presenting on the Social District. He's been in charge of this for many years, but with his upcoming retirement, city staff have prepped to have me take this over. So I'll do my best to answer all your questions today, but the Social District is really successful from all of our city divisions, from public safety to development services to finance and public works. So a lot of them are here today to answer questions that I cannot answer. So today we are here to have a discussion on the potential expansion of the downtown Muskegon Social District, potentially for summer of 2024. As a very brief summary, Michigan Social District Basics, there is an opportunity within social district consumption areas for patrons to carry an open alcoholic beverage in a designated container. We follow those basic rules here in the city. We're open 365 days a year from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. and very simple rules here. People can drink from designated cups. They have to stay within our common areas. You don't take your cups outside of that area, and make sure that you're using the required businesses. And you can't reuse your cups in our social district. Quick history of the social district here in the City of Muskegon. In September of 2020, the City Commission and the Michigan Liquor Control Commission approved the social district plan for Muskegon. In April of 2021, we expanded to include the property at 490 West Western Avenue. In May of 2021, we expanded and opened a new social district in the Lakeside area. In April of 2022, the downtown social district was expanded to include Hackley Park areas along Clay Avenue from 2nd to 4th Street, and then re-added that property at 490 West Western Avenue. Both of those districts, Lakeside and Downtown, have been operating continuously since opening, and today we're beginning the very early discussions about expanding the Downtown Social District. So why are we discussing this today? City staff members have been approached by multiple businesses, both across Shoreline Drive and up 3rd Street, that have seen an increase of foot traffic since the last expansion of the social district in downtown. With their interest, we are bringing the topic to you for your discussion. So who are the businesses that have asked to be included? Specifically, we've talked with the team at Pigeon Hill at the Brewers Lounge, Parkland Properties, who is owning Shoreline or managing Shoreline Inn and the Lake House Waterfront Grill, the Muskegon Brewing Company, which will be a new business in Adelaide Point, and then the owners of Curry Kitchen. I put Fracano's under there because I haven't directly spoken with them, but the Pigeon Hill team has and noted their interest. Some additional businesses that you can expect to get a license in the future to participate, or that already have a license and could also be interested but didn't want to completely dedicate that time. So we have the Shaw Walker development across Shoreline. We have the potential of the Harbor 31 Hotel, Bar, or Restaurants. Muskegon Brewing Company, we already mentioned that, but they do not currently have a liquor license, so I just wanted to point out that that is still pending. And then the Mart Dock and Aquastar. Our planning department and Dave have done a great job of putting together a potential expansion map for you. So I'll point out some key factors here. The light gray area is our current social district for the downtown area. The social district is the area where if somebody does have a liquor license, they can ask to be included in the social district. The red outline is the current consumption area. So just because the social district is bigger, you can only consume where there's a red line. The light blue area, which extends up 3rd Street and across Shoreline Drive from Adelaide Point up through Harbor 31, is the proposed expansion of the social district. We phased this out into 2 sections. The yellow area is the proposed common area that we would propose to you guys to look for expansion currently. And then the green future common area is where we would expand once we get, approval of liquor licenses and those buildings get built. I have another slide of this, so don't get too bogged down in the details. I can come back to it. Some frequently asked questions that we were kind of expecting and that I got when talking to city staff, just to give you guys a heads up. Number one thing is crossing Shoreline Drive safe. Should we allow people to do that? Should we encourage people to do that? We have the Pigeon Hill team at the Brewers Lounge has assured us that they're already picking up dozens of social district cups across that area and along the bike path every single weekend all summer long. So people are doing this regularly, and we want to enforce a policy that encourages people to do things legally rather than making it more difficult. By expanding the social district, we are encouraging the connection between downtown and the waterfront and downtown and 3rd Street. A lot of people were like, whoa, Deborah, that's a really big area. Is that legal? Can it be that big? Yes, it can be that big. The state law does not outline any size restrictions. A very close example for us is the city of Grand Rapids. They had multiple smaller social districts throughout their downtown or their city, and they compiled those into one larger area. For example, this is going like the garage bar in the north all the way down to the downtown market in the south over to the west side, east side. So that's a very large area, much larger than what we're proposing. Throughout that map, you'll notice some public spaces and some youth-centered activity in that area. So we communicated with our Boys and Girls Club team. Their CEO is very supportive of the expansion of the project. She was personally excited. She doesn't see any issues, but will be happy to put up some very clear signage to say that social district is not welcome in that area. Rotary Park, that is still going through the approval and communication team along with Heritage Landing through the county, and our bike path would be included as a safe walking path through the different businesses. So many people, including our businesses who are interested in this, are interested in increasing our enforcement and safety of the social district. Whether we do the expansion or not, our city staff has the ability to increase some of our enforcement techniques. So this is an idea of what we hope to increase this year. So we'll be updating all of our information online for patrons and businesses to make sure it's much more clear of what our rules are. We'll be implementing an updated annual training day. We've done that in the past, but formalizing that a little bit more. We're going to share a social district binder for businesses that they can keep on staff. So if they get new trainers or new staff or anything like that, they can easily go through and train their staff. We will update the annual business agreement that businesses sign each year. We're going to be conducting new annual business walkthroughs with the city fire marshal to ensure that correct signage is posted in each of the participating businesses. We're looking into enforcing a color-coded cup rule for easy visibility for our police department to be able to catch people who are not following the rules. Chief Kozel has looked into increasing our PD presence on bike downtown because it's not as easy to enforce things when you're driving back and forth in a car, and it's much easier when you're on a bike. As always, people can call 911 with emergencies, and then if needed, we can always have the option to add additional security during large events. FAQ 5, what is the timeline for our expansion? So if this is something that the City Commission is interested in doing, which will be expanding through phase 1, that extra expansion, my suggestion would be to have this on the April 23rd Commission meeting to vote, because we need to send your approval to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. It takes a few weeks to get that approved, and that would then give us enough time to do back-end production, such as creating new signs, get the meeting in place, put out new trash bins, all that stuff. Are there additional costs to the expansions? Yep, we're going to put some additional trash bins throughout the common areas and do updated signage. As businesses purchase stickers, that brings in revenue, and that is currently how the social district has been funded. One thing when we were talking with one of the businesses today, and I just want to be transparent and give you guys a wholesome scope, is that the chamber is going through a waterfront redesign plan or a design plan, and it's been discussed or brought up that that is something that maybe we should wait for. So I just wanted to put that out there, and that's all I got. So I'm ready to hear from you guys. And I've got the map back so you can check it out.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Sweet. Commissioner Guru?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Sweet, for being here this evening. So I understand a lot of times when people are partaking, they go to one place, they hang out outside, and or maybe downtown, they expand a little bit from here to there. But most part, hey, we're in this area. Not necessarily everyone's going to be walking across Shoreline Drive, but from the evidence that our folks on the north side of Shoreline Drive, where they found trash and debris and stuff, that's a little concerning to me. My question is, I guess it's a rhetorical question because I know we can, but can the commission pick and choose the expansion of this social district? Because my actual concern, I love all my folks, and the people at Curry Kitchen may not like me very much, but south of Muskegon Avenue, southeast, whichever way it goes, because I know our city slants a little bit, where that Shell gas station is down to Curry Kitchen, I have a concern with us extending the social district at this current time there into the neighborhoods. It's kind of away from downtown as opposed to where the other expansions are in the way that we're trying to grow north of Shoreline Drive and the waterfront developments that are coming and stuff like that. So if we voted, let's say that we put this on the 23rd and we vote yes, we'd be voting yes on this current map.
We can change the map if you would like us to, if that's the direction of the commission.
Gotcha. Okay. So that was kind of my question.
Yeah, as the purposes of tonight's discussion,
Yeah.
for this work session, is does the commission have an appetite to move this expansion in its current iteration forward, or what questions, what concerns, what desired changes there are from the commission?
For sure. So who follow up on that? Other than Curry Kitchen, Mikey's, the hamburger, they don't have a liquor license, correct?
Correct. Only Curry Kitchen has
Only
a
Curry
liquor
Kitchen
license
has
there.
a license. Okay.
I will reiterate that the Griffin's Rest through the DDA has expressed interest in getting more patrons down to that end of town, and the DDA team, specifically Contessa Alexander, has noted that this could be a tool to draw people down to that area.
And we could also extend the social district into that area at a later date also, right?
Correct.
I'd really love to look at more data just because I know what I see with my eyes. I'm around town a lot with my job, and I know what I see south of Muskegon Avenue on 3rd Street. I come see my vinyl collection sometime, right? I love the record store, right? And I love the hamburger spot, and I like Curry Kitchen. I just don't want to turn a certain section. I don't want any of our sections of our city to get worse if they don't have to because of something that we choose to expand in certain areas. So me personally, I'm not necessarily as in favor to expanding away from downtown, like south of Muskegon Avenue there at this time. Everything else, I'd love to hear numbers from the chief or, data on what our current social district and calls or reports from the police department, kind of how's our social district doing with
I
that?
can speak to that. I asked our police community coordinator, Emily Morgenstern, to pull some of those numbers.
Awesome.
And through the past couple of years, there were not direct incidents specifically on the social district, but there are obviously calls from events and things like that, but nothing that they could tie specific to that individual initiative.
Awesome. Okay. I don't think I have anything further at this time.
I think Commissioner could go. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. So I am pretty much of the opposite perspective on this. I'm a lot more interested in the idea of expanding into the 3rd Street corridor because I know those businesses have been asking for any kind of support that they can get. And I think that this could be a very tangible way to support helping to improve that corridor. And, anytime you shine a light on something, you're gonna change the environment. But I think in many ways this could be beneficial. I think having more movement down the 3rd Street corridor of people who are going there deliberately and then frequenting those businesses is going to provide benefit to the community around it. I know that I've spoken to a lot of the business owners on that strip, some that aren't there anymore because it didn't work for them. And I know that they frequently talk about being left out of opportunities, and that it's very hard for them to stay viable. And I think this could be a tangible way for us to show them support. And not everybody is into the idea of a social district, and there's going to be risk that comes to that. But I think the years of exposure to the social district downtown shows that it's pretty low, and the drinks are quite expensive. So if you are using the social district, you're not just out with your own adult beverage. You have paid a premium for that opportunity to move around, and not everybody is going to be able to do that. But I think that even if Hamburger Mikey's isn't going to participate, somebody else can go inside and get your dinner, and everybody can sit outside because there's picnic tables all the way down. And I think that would really be a nice additional benefit for that neighborhood. I don't have great concerns with any of the social district. I do worry a little bit about the traffic across Shoreline, just because I don't know how safe it is for people to be going back and forth, but I also recognize that people are going to do what they're going to do. And I know that they are already crossing the road every day, and we want that. And I think this will give us an opportunity to continue to seek ways to make that corridor safer for pedestrians, and maybe a little bit more impetus to work on a process that works for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good job, Ms. Sweet. To the concern with 3rd Street, and to kind of echo on Commissioner Kilgore's point, I oversee that ward in that Nelson area. And from the looks of the map, the social district expands all the way into the residential area, from the looks of it. Is that correct? All the way to, is that to Strong Street? Would it?
Dan?
To Merle? The map, I believe, shows Merle. Yeah. Okay. So
The Manzano's property.
the Manzano's
Yeah.
property. Of course, it said it cuts off at Merle. Okay. And I walk that area a lot. I've always have it. Even as before I was a commissioner, but seeing the activity that goes on there, there's a lot of activity that goes on. I don't know how that would work. Haven't heard feedback from the residents because it's just not being proposed. But that's something I wouldn't be in favor of right now. And as I said before, when we approved the social district downtown, one of the main concerns was crossing Shoreline. And as stated, there's cups and people are crossing. It doesn't make it right. It's illegal. They shouldn't be doing it. But if they're doing it illegally, it opens up a continuous risk of something happening. To enforce it and say, hey, okay, but still, how safe is it to cross that road, cross that street, and be intoxicated, looking out for the pedestrian, the people? Are they being responsible? Well, they're not being responsible, the ones that's carrying it across the Shoreline Drive and knowing they're not supposed to. So is it something that I can be persuaded to if done correctly and right? More conversation? Yes. What? those are just my thoughts right now.
Thank you. Can I?
Yes, please.
I think I skipped one minor portion of this. Part of the new enforcements that we're going to be doing is a two-strike policy with our businesses. So if somebody is not following the guidelines that are set out for us of like how to serve and enforcing the cups and those things, our police department will be giving them more of a verbal warning and taking a report, I guess. And then if that happens again, it'll be a written civil infraction, which automatically gets escalated to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission for action through them. So we have the ability really to revoke licenses of the social district if people are not following the guidelines. Which would mean any of the businesses downtown, on Shoreline, or up 3rd Street.
Any follow-up, Commissioner?
No, I don't have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to add or ask right now?
I do. Thank you for putting this together.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna two trains of thought. I have more of an appetite, I guess in general about the expansion, to maybe include Curry Kitchen. I just, as a resident in that neighborhood, I think some engagement with that neighborhood would make me feel more comfortable, primarily because we do have a very active nonprofit, youth-oriented, office at the corner of 3rd and Houston that I would definitely want their input about. But I completely agree with the Vice Mayor's comments about making sure that business district can be more successful than it has in the past. And I think that might be more of a natural expansion to the social district. So more dialogue there. In terms of expanding the district across Shoreline Drive, I just want to say this kindly, but it's pretty unimpressive to me that there is a sentiment of it's already happening, so let's just make some rules around it. The way this is being presented, I think, is actually highlighting that we have opportunity for our law enforcement to be doing better in that aspect. So I'm very excited about the proposal about certifying businesses to come in the social district. I'd like to see us just do that anyway with the current social district. And I would be more encouraged if I saw then progress of Pigeon Hill not finding cups across the street. We're seeing that enforcement. We're seeing that it works. I do understand the efficiency of going to the Liquor Control Commission with all these changes at once. But knowing that we could have the flexibility to grow the social district piece by piece, again, I think I'd feel more comfortable maybe seeing how Pigeon Hill to the hotel would work. Because again, it is this balance of we do want people accessing our downtown waterfront in a different way. I do want people on that side of Shoreline Drive enjoying the district, but it seems a little early to expand as far as what we're seeing. Not that we won't get there, but I think just a baby step to get there would make me, and I think it sounds like the commission, feel way more comfortable moving forward. But I'm excited about the growth and that, we're engaging with our neighbors this way and looking towards that. But that's just where I'm at right now. And I do think it is continue worth noting, if we do have a leadership organization in our community working on waterfront redesign and how potentially our community might be engaging with a waterfront differently, maybe seeing what that looks like, hearing from the community before putting this in place, and then finding out, I don't know, we have the social district where we shouldn't have the social district. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Oh, some follow-up?
Yeah.
All right, I'll reserve. I'm going to go to Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thanks. Just looking at an actual map that I can read roads. Is this proposing 3rd Street go down to Merrill?
Yes. Yep.
So I'm less comfortable with that. In my mind, it stopped at Monroe. I don't know why I thought that. I just assumed that there's no eating establishments past that. So I'm not sure why we would go a full 2 blocks.
Probably this
past
larger
that.
parcel on this
And
side.
and there's nothing there now. So I think, to Commissioner Gorman's point, we can take this back and add that in if there becomes a reason to do that. But going into the neighborhood and out of the immediate need for a business corridor right now doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So.
I would just quickly. I got more to say, but quickly I will say I will concur with that.
Yeah.
If we're going to extend it there, I would be much more comfortable with it stopping at Monroe, knowing that we could in the future potentially extend it to Merrill. But Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Just a curious question. Do we know how many, because this is something we're going to need to think about as we grow our shoreline. Harbor 31, potential new hotel on that side. We have Terrace Point, we have the hotels, whatever happened with Mart Dock, Heritage Landing, Fricanos, Adelaide Point. Do we know how many push button crosswalk buttons we have that from one end to the other? Like, I see that there would be a crossing at Terrace, crossing by the Delta 3rd Street.
I'm getting a lot of threes in the audience.
And at 4th. Right?
Consensus
Oh,
in the
there is one at
audience.
4th.
4.
Yeah, there's one at 4th.
There's no push button that you cross every time. It all does from
3 or 4.
Right. So just something in general. I know this doesn't necessarily speak to the social district. The manager will hear me, DPW, on how much it'll cost if we add this, that, and the other. But as we grow, right, I think that we are going to need to think about push button crosswalks that like either alert and stop traffic, or they hold the light longer, or they just change the light and it runs its regular cycle. You guys have probably talked about this in other meetings with expansion stuff like that. But I'm just thinking, okay, now let's introduce alcohol, right? Now we're walking across the street, so us making sure where they're at, where they're working. Here are the routes for the social district, which you have lined out in yellow, really nice, which doesn't include 4th. It doesn't look like it's just 3rd, right? And it's just here, and it's just 7th. So we want to make sure that there's going to be a focus on using our designated routes to cross the street if you're going to cross shoreline, if that's where we lay them out at, that we have measures in place so that we're doing our due diligence for safe pedestrian travel across a busier, thorough way through downtown. So just stuff I want us to think about. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Commissioner Kilgo. Any other questions or comments at this time? I would say that of all the establishments you've presented here, whether in existence or contemplated for the future, and their inclusion in a social district, I would support their inclusion. Caveat being, I don't necessarily support one massive social district. I'm having a hard time seeing this as one social district and an expansive social district versus perhaps have a Western waterfront district where you can have the Watermark and Fricanos and Adelaide Point, and they've got their own social district there versus being an extension of the core downtown district. I do like including and extending to Curry Kitchen. I do understand the concerns about going into the neighborhoods and the implications thereof. I think if we do cut that back to Monroe and not go to Merrill, that would help alleviate that to some extent. I do think it's important to include 3rd Street District and specifically Curry Kitchen. They had some challenges in the past with their liquor license when they changed places. They had to go through a lot of hurdles to get that. And it'd be nice if we can support their inclusion in the social district. When we first established the social district, we were intentional in not crossing shoreline. for various different reasons, one of which being safety. So it does give me some pause now doing it. I do understand why those businesses on the side would want to be included. Again, not sure I'm there yet about expanding the district to encompass that versus perhaps having a downtown waterfront district, that accommodates Mart Dock and Aquastar and Pigeon Hill Lounge and Shoreline Inn and Lake House and then eventually Viridian Shores. So again, I support all of these entities being included. I'm not quite there yet about a singular massive expansion of our one district downtown versus contemplating separate districts. With regard to the littering issue, wholeheartedly agree. We need to be stepping up enforcement on that, and whether or not we need to be raising the fee for the cups to incorporate funding for cleanup, and it's not just the cups themselves. I've heard other concerns, but the cups themselves specifically should not. They need to be cleaned up regularly. I do not, particularly if we were to expand this, I do not want to see our Lakeshore Trail littered with drinking cups. Do not want them then getting into our lake. And so those are concerns, and it's not just about trash recyclables either. Because when we did approve this, we said we wanted to ensure that the cups are recyclable, and so that's another operational question I have then for you, and maybe you can't answer it right now. But are the cups that we have indeed recyclable, particularly when you have the sticker added to them? And it's not just about the ability to recycle, but what kind of programming are we making available to ensure that they are recycled instead of just, oh, you can recycle it, but none of them get recycled. You know what I'm saying?
I'll let the manager answer that.
So to answer a couple of those questions, we don't provide the cups. The businesses provide their cups. So I can't answer if they're recyclable or not. I believe Pigeon Hills are, because I think it says it on there. But
well, sorry.
Okay.
When you weren't here.
Yep.
When we established this program, we were intentional about them being recyclable, and that should have been carried forward, ensured that every entity that is operating within this is having recyclable cups. Okay. So I just want to give that caveat.
Okay. So my guess is that probably the majority are not. I don't know, but
When we first started, Dave Alexander, community engagement. When we first started this, it was during COVID, and we attempted to get a sourcing on compostable cups. They are somewhat difficult to store and to keep in form. You get them in hot areas, they deform very quickly. So that was number one. Number two is we could not get the amount that we had. We did an initial 50,000 order, and they were gone within the first half summer, and we could not get any more of those at that time. And we're pulling those somewhere out of Las Vegas, Nevada. So that was difficult.
I do really like that you had sought out compostable, because that takes out the equation of recycling and takes the onus off the individual to make sure they're properly recycling it, and it's just compostable. Understanding the deficiencies and problems that you've experienced with that, I do wonder how we can revisit the recyclability component, or if there is now a compostable option that is readily available and cost feasible, but that otherwise that recyclability important. The recyclability aspect is important.
yeah, and I think I was thinking compostable when I was talking. So, but yeah, with the stickers on it, I'm not sure what that does. As far as the trash pickup goes, right now, we have 2 seasonals, Dan.
The schedule for this summer is to have 3 seasonals.
3 seasonals, okay. Who pretty much just focus on emptying the trash cans downtown, picking up litter and things of that nature. The 2 individuals that we had in the past did a great job, but it's a big job. We're adding a 3rd person this year, and that comes out of the revenues from the cups. It's not coming out of another revenue source. With that being said, one of the most consistent pieces of feedback I've gotten in the past 6 weeks is that there's a feeling we charge too much for our stickers, and wanting to have that cost reduced or eliminated. And there's different communities handle it differently. I have started talking to some other managers to see how they handle it. Communities our size, generally they're charging. And then ones that might be a little bit smaller, a lot of times it's another nonprofit entity that handles the administration of the social district. We're also talking about social districts that are much smaller, like 2 blocks, 3 blocks at most. Ours, with the size of our DDA, is extensive, so those cups do walk around. As someone who lives in the social district, I do see them near my house. So, but
Question: when you say sticker, can you explain what
sure.
you're talking about, please?
So to comply with the social district regulations, the business that's selling the cup has to have their logo on it somehow. That can either be accomplished through a branding cup or with a sticker, and then there also has to be a social district signia on it too, which we accomplish through a sticker that says Downtown Muskegon Social District. It's got the Together Muskegon Rising logo on it, and then the Lakeside District has
Same thing.
same one with, or just different colors. Okay, so
So, the businesses pay for these stickers?
the businesses pay for these stickers, and those costs get passed on to the consumer. So one of the concerns that we've heard about the cost is perhaps some of the reason that we're seeing people walking out without getting a social district cup, because a lot of our downtown businesses, particularly in the summer, serve in plastic cups anyways because they have outside seating, so generally they don't want glass out there. They would prefer to have plastic, and people walk out with those because there's the price differential between that. So one of the theories is if the cost was lowered or eliminated, that would eliminate people having to differentiate between the two. So yeah.
Which could be done on the proprietor. At the
Sure.
same time. Like they
Yes.
could choose
They
not
they
to
they
pass
yeah
that
they
fee
they
along,
could absorb that fee.
and absorb that themselves.
But we do directly use that revenue, and the revenue from the social district has. I don't know if you have a slide on this. The revenues. Sorry if I was reading while you were.
I didn't explain.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's right. We talked about this. Sorry. Deborah and I talked about this before the presentation, is what I meant. So the revenues for the social district have fluctuated a bit. And if you look at, from 22, we were just under 80,000, and in 23 we were at 45. So and then with the expense of the social district as well, that net amount is decreasing. So.
Question.
Yep.
Question. So, just hypothetically, is it decreasing because the individual businesses are saying you can buy a social cup or a regular cup, and people are like, how much is that? Yeah, I'll just buy the regular cup. Is the revenue per business per how much social
This
drinks
is
they
this is
sell?
how many stickers are purchased.
And
How many
advance.
stickers?
In advance. So go ahead.
So I was gonna say, so if you can see fiscal year ending 2021. Wait, ending. I'm thinking fiscal year starting. So it's,
Yeah.
ending, is that
Yeah,
ending
that's
June
fiscal
30th,
year
2021, not starting July 1st, 2020. Okay. I was gonna say, I know, like never mind then. It's because I was thinking, I was like, we had a bunch of influx of buying in the first year, and then they didn't need as many the next year, and so that dropped off considerably. But I'm
That
saying
would be
a really
between 22 and 23.
Okay.
So the end FY22 would have been the beginning of summer 21. So businesses
full
were buying
force.
it
Okay.
in July, August of 21. That's where that 22 number would come from, and then carrying over. So this, and then so we're in 24. So that would have been, so that 33.6 is revenue starting in last summer to now. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we are seeing a drop off in it now. Is it because, is it people are using the social district less? I think anecdotally, walking around, you see a lot of people using the social district, generally during events. But but that's also that can be a different animal. It's not always a different animal, depending if the footprint's expanded. So I'm not sure what the drop off is. Is part of it? Maybe cups are walking out that aren't social district cups. I'm sure that's probably part of it. I mean, I know that's part of it because I've seen those cups on the ground. So I know that's a part of it. So I don't know that I certainly don't think it's intentional on the business's part, and nor is it necessarily intentional on the individual's part. If they have a plastic cup and they're in a social district and they get up to walk out, and it's a busy night, someone in the bar might not realize, especially if they're holding a plastic cup. And the chief and I had a discussion with Deborah last week about, when you're holding a cup, you're just holding a cup, and if the stickers are on two different sides, which a lot of times they are, you're not necessarily going to see, and there has to be probable cause for an officer to be like, let me see your stickers. And if it's just holding the cup, that's not necessarily probable cause. So equally someone at the bar. Now, someone at the bar, if they had someone sitting right at the door and checking, they could look and say, like, do you have the right cup here or not? But from a staffing perspective, that's not always practical.
So should we be having colored cups then to get away from
Well,
that?
that was so.
I'm sorry, this
so
is like
we just-
super problematic to listen to.
Yes, that was one of the suggestions that I put on that slide earlier.
Yeah.
Great job, Deborah.
And that was, and I did float that to a couple of businesses this weekend, just being out and about. Kind of mixed feedback on it, but it could solve one problem. Like if it's a cup, if it's a green cup going out the door, the business knows. If it's a clear cup going out the door, the business knows. The law enforcement knows. It's even something that could be seen, depending on the time of day, from a cruiser as they're driving down the street. But what's the cost of that? How does that get impacted and things of that nature? So.
Development Service Director Jake Ekholm just wanted me to point out to everybody that this was during COVID time, and it did bring in a significant amount of revenue and opportunities for our downtown businesses.
Yes. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it could be looking at just the social district shaking out now. We could be looking at about that 35 to 45 annual range for revenue there, and then what type of services can we offer with that to offset the cost of seasonals, things of that nature. But thank you for the reminder on the indoor restrictions. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but yeah.
We're blocking it out.
Yeah. So like you said, COVID years different because we couldn't do everything. Big year, hey, we're back outside, no masks, all that stuff, and kind of maybe balancing out now. This whole conversation started with us if we expand our social district. I mean, 2 + 2 is usually 4, so I'm thinking the businesses. Thank you. So it's just what the businesses on that north side of Shoreline Drive, possibly down 3rd Street. It's might bring more revenue for the city, and it's not all about revenue, right? But I'm thinking, okay, those revenue numbers jump. My question is, the expenses part fluctuates because of probably how many staff we hire.
But then there's other questions about different services that could be offered, should be offered in the social district. Really right now we focus on the, for lack of a better term, the sanitation side of it. So as you increase that footprint, does the revenue that you generate from that offset the need for additional team members to be able to go out and clean that up? And certainly as you look at those footprints expanding, that is something to take into consideration. And how to, logistically, what does that look like for Dan's team members as they're going out to work in those areas. So.
We did speak briefly with our Parks and Recreation team, and we indicated potentially adding like 5 of the additional compostable trash cans on the other side of Shoreline Drive, and that would be able to be done within the current budget. This year. Private property obviously would be private property owner's responsibility of.
So I like the idea of having clearly identifiable cups and being used consistently. I don't know what that looks like. You know, if it's a colored cup or otherwise. I have one, that's going back to the recyclable part. My one reservation about a colored cup is it's typically more challenging to recycle colored plastics. So if we were to go that route, I would just ask us to give attention to
I think we
the
are
recyclability piece of it.
we are actively exploring colors, usability, etc. of the cups to better serve our residents downtown and the environment.
Question, Mr. Mayor. What about a band around a cup? Instead of a sticker, you get a band that can go all the way around a clear cup that's maybe a bright visible color.
Wait, so are we saying though if you're in the social district and you have a plastic cup, our police officers are not allowed to check for a sticker?
Correct. That's definitely correct, and I don't want our police officers to have to engage if they don't have to. I don't want them to unnecessarily have to engage with a person who's legally in the social district, legally having a drink, and us have unnecessary, unwarranted interactions with our police department. But if they're doing something legal, the police are going to engage with them. They can engage with them for a lot of different reasons
Right.
if they're doing something illegal. But if I'm standing on the corner of Western and 4th Street and I'm having a drink, they can't come up and ask me for my identification or ask me to see my cup per se. Am I correct, Chief? Let's hear from the chief himself.
Couple different ways that we would do that. Tim Colesel, Public Safety Director.
Thank you.
It would be a consensual contact. You consent to talk to me, you consent to have that interaction, or we'd have to have what we call a cause, a probable cause, something that would rise to the level that they are possibly in violation of something. Doesn't have to necessarily be just a cup situation, but we'd have to have some type of cause, because you can't stop somebody. It would be it would be violating their Fourth Amendment, stopping them without any type of cause. We'd be seizing them, and we wouldn't want me in front of you trying to come out from underneath that type of situation.
But if someone was walking with a Bud Light bottle or can, that would be a different situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Open in talks.
And that's why we see people, coming out of the store with the brown bag and drinking, and you can't really, same situation.
Correct.
In fact, it made me think of a. Never mind.
I saw that TV show too. Saw that one.
Commissioner Durbin.
Excuse me, Chief Kozel. Yeah, off the top of your head, just in that 3rd Street area, you have any idea what the crime rate is over there? The activity that goes on within that vicinity?
The things that I see that come through our daily pass downs are more centered on the shell and the thefts that we have from there. That's about it. I mean, we do have some other issues in that general area, but we do have some thefts, retail frauds, people taking from this.
You need to ask people who live and work right on the corner. I work for the Y.
Okay.
We'll have public comment
Okay.
very shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, and the reason why, because like I was looking at the area that they were talking about expanding to. Again, I walked that area. I'm familiar with that area. The activity, there's a actual convenience store there also that sell alcohol and liquor. That's my concern. I know there's a couple of businesses there, Mikey's and Curry Kitchen. But for somebody that's really not in the neighborhood, that don't walk that neighborhood, it's easy to say, oh, this would be good for the business or the community, when you really don't have a clue or ideal or really interacting with that community. I have an issue with that. But for the most part of it, I look at the demographics there, and usually when and predominantly people of color within that area, um, and we have new citizens within that area that make up another demographics. The interaction statistically, when it encounters people of color due to a situation, when whatever the interaction may be with police officers, sometimes end up somewhat fatal. I think expanding that district into the residential area and not stopping that mural increases the opportunity of some type of interaction with officers because of the type of, and I should say the people I see hanging around that store, the activity that goes on. That's a concern. I know officers are supposed to uphold the law, serve and protect. The outcome a lot of times is now not always in favor of that resident or whoever's had that encounter with officers. So I'm looking at it holistically, and that's why I asked about the crime, the activity that goes on there, because that's a concern.
Mr. President, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, so on the request and the conversation that we're having today, the reason that the staff is bringing this forward is because the businesses that are in the areas outside of the district have requested this, and the staff is, to be perfectly honest, is coming at this pretty agnostic. We wanted to have this conversation because the businesses had requested that we have this conversation. And so that's why we're having the conversation. So just kind of wanted to make sure that we were framing it in that vein. Yeah.
It's good context.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And background.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to say something on that too. I get that mantra cipher, and the business are in business to make money, but residents that live there, as we've developed the area, we know a sense of normalcy has changed. So that's a concern. And people that are shouldn't be doing illegal things, but those things happen. Just like going across shoreline, with those cups, and they should be in the social district area, are breaking the law. So there's some things to take into consideration, I think, on both sides.
Any other?
I just think my final comment is I love how our city's growing, and I want to see our city continue to grow, and that is in a social sense too. But I think that if this was on the docket as it is today, tomorrow, or if it was up for a vote tomorrow, for me, we need to look at a few more things and get them tightened up before I would give this map currently that I'm looking at a final yes. So I just think it needs a little bit more conversation to say designated areas. I love that the businesses, like I said, want to be a part of what the other businesses that are in the gray already have. How we'll go about doing that, and then also the what we've talked about, kind of how are we going to protect the environment, but also make sure that people are actually purchasing, like why we have a social district. People are actually purchasing social district cups that they're walking around with, and not necessarily. And I can't speak to like how many people aren't, like may just be drinking whatever they're drinking. So just a few tweaks that I think that we should look at before just saying yes to the whole expansion.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Any other final thoughts,
I
commissioners?
support that. I just want, like, if we could have a really great start to the summer season, I think that would bring a lot of comfort to the commission. Like mentioned, I think having the businesses sign on to agreement, doing some of these training, like we should just do that anyway without expanding the district. Um, and yeah, that would comfort us a lot.
Is the plan already?
So I guess kind of what I'm hearing from, to summarize from a staff perspective, is that there's some tweaks to the current district that we kind of want to see before we do any expansion. I'm kind of trying to take notes here back and forth, which is great. We're having a good conversation. I just want to make sure that we're going to come forward or not come forward with what it is the commission's looking for at this point.
A couple clarifying questions, if that's okay. I know specifically points 26, 27, and 28 are all extremely interested. So that's the yellow area kind of directly across Third. So we're talking about the Brewers Lounge, Shoreline Inn, and the hotel. If we shortened an expansion to that area specifically, is that something that you guys would be interested in approving?
I mean, I'm not afraid to tell you yes. I personally would be in favor of that 26, 27, and 28. With the the future 31, obviously I've gotten emails and stuff about them, but 24 and 31 also wanting to expand. But I kind of like the mayor's idea of, starting with zones, even maybe if we want people to be safe. But either way, right? You just asked about 26, 27, and 28. All kind of there and established and could do well with being included into the social district. So those are just my thoughts.
Do the current expenses that we saw include public safety patrol in the current social district?
No.
Okay, that's a little bit of a concern to me as far as if we were expanding. I'm hearing we're gonna have more public safety, so where's that expense being covered from?
It's so we have community police officers that cover different areas, including the Nelson neighborhood. So that would be part of it, and it would just be through regular patrols through the downtown that we already do. So, but I do believe there was at one point in time where we did private security down there to kind of observe, but obviously from a law enforcement perspective, they're limited in what they can do. But no, this doesn't include any extra support to PD financially.
I mean, my concern is just if we're hearing that it's not completely sufficient for the current district, then even expanding to a part of the zone and then expanding their ask of it, I don't know if I don't know if I can be comfortable with that for the summer season, transparently.
Question. And I guess this would be for Chief Kozel, if he's still here. While residents or individuals are in that social district and partaking in the festivities, is there a alcohol level for them consuming that would be considered over the limits or anything like that? I mean, how do you determine? I guess if you see somebody walking and out of control and about ready to fall over, that's pretty obvious. But and I'm thinking about the proposal crossing shoreline, and I'm looking at number 25, the Aquastar, and that's by a body of water, I believe, and that's another concern right there. Someone falling in the lake, not only getting hit, but just I guess just for legal purposes, for consuming too much alcohol.
I think outside of just a social district, any LCC based establishment serving alcohol, if they overserve, if they're given or selling to somebody that's already at a point, they're in violation themselves of the law. The establishment themselves, doesn't matter where it's at, in the social district or outside of. But there's really no crime for someone to be standing or walking intoxicated, or there isn't a level that rises to a crime. It can lend to disorderly conduct, which then we would, have a conversation and have something to do with. But normally in those situations when they're so highly intoxicated, we're trying to get them medical help more than we're, trying to put them in the county jail. Helps you on your question.
Yeah, that's just a major concern, and I'm thinking about expanding it, within the neighborhoods, and they're talking about proposing to come down Third Street. Now you're in a residential area, but also that business area also, and with intoxication or out of control behavior comes issues and problems, and the police involved, and I would rather see it in that neutral area downtown. Myself, until we can look at a way to, if expanding it across shoreline, I don't see any good options to do that right now. I just don't. Safely, and keep pedestrians and
I know there's been some
Safe.
questions about enforcement and issues and calls for service on our social district. We, as Deborah pointed out, we haven't had those calls. Hey, I see someone that's outside the social district and they're carrying a cup and they aren't supposed to be outside this. We just haven't had those. We've had a small amount in the several years that this has been in effect, where we have the issues, as the city managers talked about, where our establishments are not utilizing those cups. They're not following the rules in those aspects. So, point, Commissioner Gorman, I think that at the beginning of the season, and that's why we put the fire marshal, because he's the one that's doing all our liquor inspections, that we reinforce what they are supposed to do. Take those steps that, no matter if we expand or not, we're going to take those steps to be proactive in the educational portion.
Yeah, and I can't remember if this was Chief Kozel or if it was Director Sweet who found this piece of data out, but we were trying to figure out from either liability standpoint or from danger standpoint injuries that have occurred in social districts in the state and liability, and there has been no reported incidences of injuries as a result of people partaking in a social district. So that's just an interesting bit of information. And there are a lot of social districts in the state throughout, large communities, small communities. So it's not like we're just one of a few. So just kind of an interesting side note there.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if we have a clear consensus. Staff has heard Commission's questions, concerns. I can't say right now which way, I'd vote on this, that, or the other. If staff felt compelled to bring forward a recommendation of some kind, I would entertain that recommendation and decide at that point. But unfortunately, I could not tell you right this moment, definitively how I would vote on something, and what the contours of that looks like. In part because there are a lot more information to be received, but also engagement with the community, understanding what our residents. We understand the businesses want this, but how does our larger community feel about it? And I'd be interested in gaining understanding there personally as well. So, any final thoughts or questions, commissioners? Anything that you wish to share or otherwise impress upon us to reflect on?
I don't think so. I think we can put something together to bring back to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, that brings us to public comment. I have a couple of public comment forms. There's still time to complete a public comment form. They're at the back of the room. Do encourage you to provide your name and home address. Note I will not be sharing your home address nor asking you to announce your home address. We do need that for our records, though. When it's your time, you'll be called up and you'll have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. We will be allowing phone comments as well, so keep an eye out for the phone number scrolling at the bottom of your screen. I will be announcing, if you're a city resident, I will be announcing what neighborhood you are coming from, and if you're not a city resident, what municipality you're joining us from. First up, we have a McLaughlin neighbor, Demario Phillips. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Demario Phillips, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. I agree with you, Commissioner Kicker. I agree with you, Ken Johns. I got a lot of friends that comes to Muskegon, and I just don't think that's right. I like to go down Third Street, have a good time, eat, and relax. I just don't think it's not right to just enforce this in place when you feel you should have the right to walk down the street with your drink, as long as you're doing properly way with it, as long as you ain't acting the fool. But just stopping somebody to carry a drink, that's just as long as they acting accordingly, proper. Because I got friends that come to Muskegon, that loves to come to Muskegon, have a good time, but they shouldn't have to be subjugated about what cup they should carry in there. I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's helping Muskegon. I think that's not better than Muskegon. I agree with you, Ken. I agree with your Commissioner. It's just like I don't drink. I just think that's denying somebody's day right. I just don't think that's fair. So that's all I say.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. All right, we have a Nelson neighbor joining us, John R. Allen. Welcome, sir. You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Just a couple of thoughts and not a whole lot of organization in my address here, but I'll do my best just in responding. I was hoping Kyle might still be here. One thing I noticed in the Parks and Recreation presentation was that it said 6 major restrooms improvement. And again, I want to say thank you to Kyle as much as and echo the sentiments of the commission and what he's taken on in that role. So this isn't a knock on that, but we should really look into both the it's been a point of contention and even more to the social district potentially being expanded down the road. We have a porta-john next to what should still be a perfectly viable bathroom that's on the bike trail that would be a part of the social district, but we also have bathrooms falling apart still right now at Hartshorn Marina. I think that's just one of those things maybe staff could look into to add a 7th major restroom improvement. I don't believe the conditions of the bathroom at Hartshorn, especially as frequently as it's used, that those conditions wouldn't fly here in City Hall. That I can guarantee. Like I said, the fact that we have and pay, I'm assuming, for a porta-john on Hartshorn Park property sitting right next to a bathroom that could just be used. Why are we spending money on a porta-john when it's literally sitting right next to a bathroom? I saw in the presentation that there were accessibility improvements listed for Hartshorn to the tune of about $250,000. Again, I was hoping Kyle might be here to elaborate. Do we know what that is as far as accessibility improvements? And I would double down on the fact that the management agreement for the marina management agreement over the 5 years that it's been in place has now cost us, the taxpayers, $250,000. And it seems like, again, that's just for the existence of a piece of paper. That money could easily go to whatever the accessibility improvements, the maintenance requirements of the marina, the park, etc. I understand why the marina might not have been a part of the survey or what was conducted there, but there's a lot more acreage in the park that again is now publicly accessible, and I felt that was a little bit of a slight to a very large section of park area in the city. I would just mention in the last few seconds that the acreage in this sheer area of the one western area proposed in the social district would be, while I may not have a background in enforcement, it seems like that area would be almost impossible to enforce. At least downtown, it's more or less one strip. If, like you say, anyone goes off that, so be it. But the bike trail and the way it winds through the park and maybe Adelaide Point, it seems like impossible. So just a few points.
Thank you. Next up, Nim's neighbor, Jamie Cross. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Good evening. So I do want to talk about the water rates, really, but I can't help it. I got to talk about the cups. So about composting cups. Once you put them in a landfill, they don't break down. You need oxygen in order for them to break down. So they need to be in a commercial composting. They're also used. They also are usually plant-based, which you have to have cut down the trees, put a farm in, use fertilizer, use water. And I like composting stuff, so don't get me wrong there, but there's a whole piece there that's missing. The best is reusable cups. And I'm just going to be the proponent. I will tell you, for the last 2 years and a half, or 3 years, of Party in the Park, I have used the same cup. I take it home, empty it, clean it out, bring it back. 2 years, 1 cup. That's the best way, okay? So let's get it straight on the cups. Okay, but I really do want to talk about the water rates and affordability. I know infrastructure is important, and I know across the country this is a big issue. But I don't know how we can talk about increasing water rates without talking about affordability to lower income residents. What are we going to do? Something's going to happen. Cost of living is going up. Food, shelter, gas. I mean, I'm feeling the pinch. Low income residents are going to really feel it. And, water is a need. It's a right. We live in the Great Lakes. And so I really want you, when you're talking about raising rates, to think about how we're going to deal with people that are not going to be able to afford water in this community and what we're going to do. Just a quick search, because I know Detroit is really dealing with this in a big way. They have something called a life plan. I think you should look at it and start thinking about what you're going to do for those residents that aren't going to be able to afford the water bills. That's all. I mean, I understand why you have to raise the rates, but we shouldn't be talking about raising rates without thinking about the residents that aren't going to be able to afford it and what we're going to do for them when it happens. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Next up, we have Kim Wood joining us from the city of North Muskegon.
You found me.
Welcome.
Thank you. Some of you probably recognize me from other places, but I'm wearing my YMCA hat, and I don't work for the Muskegon Y. I work for the Grand Rapids YMCA. My address is 115 3rd Street. So I want to talk about that. First of all, my job is promoting active communities for the city of Muskegon Parks and Rec. So I really was just accidentally here to support Kyle, because I was one of those community organizers that helped produce surveys. And to brag a little bit, we saw that he didn't have a full stream to get everybody. So my team, Promoting Active Communities, got people from Disability Network. We went to senior citizen meet-up and eat-up lunches, and we brought tablets. And we went to Muskegon Middle School and got a whole bunch of kids from the garden club to go into a computer lab. So I've just used a whole minute. But my office is on 115 3rd Street. I've worked there for 2.5 years, and we are not in a safe location during the day. We have a bread shed outside where we put extra bread out for people who are hungry, and if we have extra food from the veggie van, which also comes from the Grand Rapids Y, we have to lock ourselves in because people will bang on our doors and demand food. If I am cooking or doing something later in the day and I have coolers and things to bring back, I come back the next day because I'm not comfortable coming after 5 o'clock because there are so many They may be neighborhood residents or transient or whatever, but we get accosted all the time. I'm not even comfortable going to the Shell station anymore because 50% of the time I get panhandled for money. So I think that I love Curry Kitchen. Obviously, they're my neighbor and I support them in any way I can. But I don't think, based on my being there, boots on the ground every day, that this neighborhood is in any condition to do this now. I would say maybe in a future time, but really, really not now. I just don't see it as a positive, and if anybody wants any additional feedback, you should talk to my cousins, the Muskegon YMCA, who do Camp Pendaluan and diabetic education. They're right through the little sliding door between our offices. But I think that we have an important voice because we are there 5 days a week. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. It's kind of a response, which I know you don't do, but I thought it'd be good information.
All right, we will entertain.
Okay.
A response. Typically, it's just a time
Yeah.
for it to receive input, but we have some feedback.
So we did get a notification in the past couple of days that we were approved for a planning grant through Eagle regarding water affordability. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to answer.
Okay.
Not that specific,
Okay.
but I wanted to answer that question and address the different programs that are available and coming online. But thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the audience wish to give public comment at this time? We're going to be going to the phones. That's 231-724-6721. Anyone at home or wherever you are watching this, you are welcome to phone in. Again, that phone number is 231-724-6721. When you call in, please turn down any audio in the background and announce your name. And if you are a city resident, which neighborhood you live in. If you're not a city resident, which other municipality, city, township, or village you may be calling from. All right. No calls?
No.
Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn, commissioners.
So move.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Kilgo to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care and be well.
Good night. Stay safe.
Remember, you saw me at